Good evening and welcome to the Town of St. Andrews regular council meeting for Monday, December the 2nd, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. in the W.C. O'Neill Arena Council Chambers. So the first thing we have to do is the recording of attendance. And I notice everyone is here and even the mayor is online. Mark Blanchard is on. He's not online yet, just the mayor. Okay, and so Mark is the only one missing at this point. Everybody else is here. Thank you. We want to recognize that we're on the unceded and we welcome everyone. And we recognize that we are on the unceded traditional territory of the Peskotomuhkati people. Approval of the agenda. We need a first and a seconder. First, Councillor Heenan. Second, Councillor Hurdle. Are there any additions that need to be added or anything, Councillor Weir?
Yes, I'd like to add in conjunction with appointing an auditor, that we should appoint a.
Is your microphone on? Sorry, I can't hear you.
Sorry. Under the appointment of an auditor, I think we should probably look at whether we do it or not, is the appointment of a town engineer with the problems we've encountered during the year. Thank you.
Okay.
We'd put that under J for new business.
Under new business, J for new business. New engineer. Thank you very much, Councillor Weir, and thank you, Mr. Spear, for helping me. Any other things? Otherwise, we will approve
Deputy Mayor, you need a seconder for that?
I did. I got Hurdle.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
No, you need.
for
that's
Councillor Weir, sorry.
Please.
For Councillor Weir's addition, could I have a seconder? Councillor Bennett. So do we do theirs
All in
first?
favor?
All in favor? Say aye. Contrary minded? Well, there's no contrary minded. All right, so now we will do the agenda, the approval of the agenda. Could I have
No, you've
all those that say aye? And contrary minded? No contrary minded, so it's carried. So the agenda is accepted with the new addition. Disclosure of a conflict of interest. I have to declare a conflict of interest in the portfolio that I usually do and Councillor Heenan is going to do with Dial-A-Ride. So Councillor Heenan and I will be stepping out for that. And the mayor has agreed to take it virtually from where he is. Okay. All right, Council. Thank you. If there are any questions, you need to send them to pnopper@townofstandrews.ca. If you have any questions. All right. Now we will start with the approval of the minutes.
Deputy Mayor, please, you go to presentations next.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
We have we have a presentation on council. Mr. Spear has a presentation for us.
I'm so excited.
Thank you, Mr. Knopper, and thank you, Mr. Spear, for doing that.
And I'm so excited. This might be the biggest budget presentation I've ever had in 21 years. So, whew, the sweat is coming just off of me. So, Mr. Knopper does have a presentation that we'll be able to see up here in a minute. I will say to those watching and to anyone here that we've done just about all these meetings virtually over and over again. We've gone over in depth a lot of the accounts. So this is an abbreviated version, or we'd be here for several hours. If approved tonight, it will be made available later in the week on the website and or in paper format at Town Hall. Thank you. So for the timeline, we started really early and I met with staff way back in August of of the summer. We have that long of a precursor, and even though we're barely getting going in the current year, we have to start doing a lot of planning, everything from capital, but we're starting to get an idea of where we want to be in operations too, and what's working, what may not be working. Then September 25th, I presented it to council for the first time. On October 10th, we did have a budget discussions at Bayside Hall. We didn't get too deep into what was the current budget. We just talked about what had happened in the past, especially relevant to those in the previous LSDs, of course, was the sharing model of shared cost. And that's been a topic of discussion even up until recently. And we've agreed to look into it in the new year if there's some further in-depth analysis. Because of the election this year, usually the province of New Brunswick releases all their information way back in late September, early October, but they were so scared of affecting the election that basically there's a communication black hole as soon as the writ was dropped. And I was even talking to our library manager, and they were told not even to post things on Facebook of any sorts of things. So it was we had to wait, and that pushes it back. We knew there's going to be some growth and stuff, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but it does affect what we're doing. And then in November, we had several more meetings, got more information from the province, and there's even some information leaking through last week as we just wrapped it up in this presentation for tonight. So the assessment-based highlights are just to let you know, within St. Andrews, there's 3 taxing authorities, they call it, or 3 tax zones. There's Bayside and Shamcook, who are grouped together for the sake of calculating the mill rate. They share the same mill rate. St. Andrews, in the St. Andrews BIA, they pay 20 cents per $100 of assessment over and above what the other non-BIA areas do. That money goes right directly to the association, by the way. It's about a $30,000 budget. We approved that, I think, at the end of October, early November meeting. And so, but it is captured through the property tax system. So in general, overall growth, roughly 10% or $62 million for the whole town of St. Andrews. That includes all 3 communities. New construction being about 3.28%, and the reassessment, so things going up about 6.66%. Just told, okay, that's okay. So one thing, maybe I can touch on a bit. No, I'll stick with this. So per the taxing authorities, here's where the growth happened. So Bayside and Shamcook grew by about $25 million. And I'm sorry, I left the table out there for St. Andrews, but it grew a little over 40 million. And so growth in percentage terms was 12 and 2%, which came up to the combined of 9.94, 10%. And the percentage of the total assessment, so of the BIA is grouped into the St. Andrews. And so the total assessments was that Bayside and Shamcook now account for a little less than a third, 32.2%, with the old town of St. Andrews making up the other balance. So it's important to know that in the past, council had a policy that we'd grow the property tax by 5%. That wasn't 5% on the mill rate. It was just that the combination of assessments and the mill rate would grow 5%. And most years we had to increase it a little bit, but since the pandemic, it's actually could come down to follow that policy. But the clerk and I were talking way back in the fall, early fall. We knew that construction, without seeing the final numbers, was going to be roughly 3% of the growth this year, just based on the large projects we're aware of, everything from Compass Housing, Charlie Bourgeois' property, Van Horn Estates, and others that have gone in town. And so we had asked the mayor and talked to him briefly and said that we're going to work at a 3% 3% growth in the assessment. That's just on the growth. In theory, people's tax bills would stay the same. It's not that simple in the end, but if people's assessments don't grow much, their tax rate could actually, or their total tax bill could actually go down. So we went from the 5% to the 3%. I've talked to that to council several meetings ago, and they supported that. Next slide, please. So I'll just get right into what most people are worried about is the mill rates moving forward. So last year's mill rate was 58.12 cents at Bayside and Shamcook, and we're recommending to council 0.5395. So there's a small decrease of about 4 cents. When you add on the DTI fee of 41.15 cents, which goes to the province of New Brunswick for the upkeep of roads and highways everywhere, that their total mill rate is 95.10. For the town of St. Andrews, the original mill rate was $1.11 in the year we're in, and we've now proposing to drop it to $1.506. So the St. Andrews residents could enjoy close to 7-cent mill rate decrease for a combined mill rate of $1.506. When I say why we don't pay the DTI fees, because Public Works is taken out of the calculation for the LSDs and only added to St. Andrews. So right now, other municipalities would call it an inside-outside rate. And we're talking about a 10-cent difference between the previous LSDs and the Old Town. So in the general operating fund, there's an overall increase of 5%. That's not necessarily expenses. We'll get to that in a little bit. Now, something to be aware of is in 2023, because of the way projects went, we put money in surpluses, which is like a savings account. But due to a project that didn't get billed a lot later than we'd hoped, there's actually a $204,000 surplus, which is significant to carry forward. But in New Brunswick, in order to ensure balanced budgets, what they do is they take the surplus or deficits and move them ahead 2 years in order to force it to be balanced. The reason I bring it up, though, is because it is showing up in revenue this year. And that's about the equivalent of about 4 cents on the tax rate, the extra revenue that will disappear next year, potentially, because that surplus is just a year-to-year thing, just to be aware. It should be noted that our provincial funding grant decreased by 17%. So what they used to call the equalization grant, I think they call them the community funding grants now at the province, decreased to $85,000 this year. When I first started here in 2004, I think it was about 140,000, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. Operating expenses only grew by 1%. That's not across the board. There's some things that have gone up and down. We had a study like with the recreation that we did, that we're working on a recreation master plan that wasn't included next year and things like that. But general government did grow by 5%. Part of it is increase in professional development. Some of it is a CPI increase for staff, which has been policy for many years. But one of the things is the repairs and maintenance are quite a bit higher because we're addressing electrical needs at town hall. There's been a lot of patchwork things done over the last few years. And the good thing is we have an electrician on staff who will do most of it, but we do have to buy the equipment and wiring in order to do it and to bring it up to a better standard. The fiscal services have increased by 19%. It's really a two-part thing. One of it is that the new ladder truck will be coming in soon, and the payments begin on that. The council approved a long time ago a $910,000 loan on that, and so that'll be coming to you in May. And so we'll begin interest payments next year as well as principal after that. And then in protective services, there's a 12% decrease, which is unusual. So that's RCMP and fire. So there's a short-term decrease for an adjustment in human resource costs. That it'll just be a one-time thing. And so we'll take it. They let us know as they build up their membership again, as we've got some going, some coming in. So we'll take that. And then but the fire department pretty much has stayed par for the course. I will say that in there, currently we do have $15,000 put aside for an additional bylaw enforcement contract. We haven't completely decided, our council's got to approve that, but we had a meeting with Councillors Bennett and Neil earlier last week to talk about the need, and we think we've identified the need. We'll probably go that way. So there were some concerns from folks that where we'd gone from a full-time bylaw enforcement officer to a half-time, that maybe that wasn't sufficient. So for the busy summer months when congestion's bad and parking's worse, that we have built in extra costs to be able to have a contracted service or a part-time employee. Environmental services have 11% increases, so that's solid waste pickup. Primarily, it's because in mid last year, recycling went to a different group. So we used to pay our collectors for the recycling fee, circular materials. That's what I was struggling to find. And now they are contracting directly with the RSC and the collectors. And so that's a reflection of part of it. And then part of it's too that we're able to combine the contracts with Bayside and Shamcook from the old provincial contract. And overall, there's a savings on a percentage of budget or per household, whatever way you want to look at it, compared to prior years. Is it still showing up, Paul? Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah, I just didn't want to get ahead of you. So in Public Works, about the only service increase we talk about is that council has approved in this budget. They proceed as an additional person for a full-time basis in Public Works. With the hiring of the recreation manager and a lot of the events that are being staged now with the help of Explore St. Andrews, our team's time has spent a lot of time putting up stages, bringing down benches, and a lot of time. We've talked about that in the past with council, that we're talking, several hundred hours that they weren't responsible before. However, we used to have two seasonal positions in the Parks and Recreation, what we call the lawn mowing crew. And one of those positions we've asked to be taken out and converted to full-time. So in essence, we're only receiving a new half a position, or a little bit more, but that we're just turning that. I did want to bring to everyone's attention that the courthouse and jail, as you know, we took that over 6 or 7 years ago, and there's a grant given by the province of New Brunswick in order to help to maintain it. What they said for 5 years, but Paul and I, being good savers, were able to stretch it out to 7 years. But next year, 2025 will be the last year that grant will come through. And so the expenses right now run about $30,000 to $40,000, have been covered by the province through that initial lump sum payment. And now that's going to be disappearing. So general capital, the total investment we're talking about is 5.3 million. The key proposals we're bringing forth, and I put it on the bottom, probably should put it at the top, of course, is the wharf refurbishment. The 2025, 2.5 million is only the start of it, that the total project's probably going to be to $7 to $8 million by the time it's all said and done, but that's all that's being carried forward. When you get the budget document, if approved tonight, it shows the 5-year capital plan, and that'll show that stretched out. Vehicle replacement in Public Works, there's two. There's a tandem dump truck that'll be bought to replace a 10-year-old vehicle as well, a 6-year-old vehicle, and then a new half-ton that's going to be replacing a 6-year-old vehicle, 11-year-old vehicle. There's $470,000 put towards paving this year. We'll have more discussion in this over the winter about our paving program, but 3 or 4 years ago, we said we should be spending about $1.5 million just to keep our streets up to a certain level, and we're not there, and we're still falling behind every year. Doesn't mean they're impassable, but it does mean they're cracking, they're deteriorating further. So if you follow best practices under asset management, we should be putting more there. The big one before council tonight, of course, is the Prince of Wales refurbishment, and by now I'm sure everyone saw the pylons by the trees along Prince of Wales 3 weeks ago as they looked at it. The funding partner says we don't have to widen the street as far as we want all the way. And so there's the potential that we could do part of that. So that's up for you for consideration. I will say that in the past, council has approved the overall capital budgets, but staff will come back for a lot of them and get further direction. It gives us time to design, discuss, and for some of the smaller stuff, we'll say under $100,000, we can start planning on that stuff and putting out tenders and things. Vehicles, for instance, as Councillor Neil can attest, I think we ordered that fire truck in 2022, so we're almost 3 years in receiving that. The tandem dump truck, we're believing that could be 1.5 years to 2 years in receiving it. So it's just for large equipment. I think it's a combination of supply chain, but I think they learned during the pandemic that if they do just on time management, basically they aren't going to produce anything until they get an order for it. And so it slows things down tremendously. The public washrooms, as far as we can tell, the building was built in the 1970s, and I don't think the washrooms have been improved since. And it's probably the most popular attraction in St. Andrews, I always like to say, on the side of Town Hall. So Public Works is going to renovate that. So that's just parts and cost. We are finding the materials are very expensive now for these things, just unbelievable, but that's a non-labor cost. I will say, though, we'll talk about it a little bit, but that funding is actually coming from the Tourism Development Fund that council has, so it has no effect on the tax base. Now, one of the projects before council tonight is expanded parking. This is another project that is funded by the tourism accommodation levy. So again, not, what we're proposing is that along Water Street, you have the entryway to the Van Horn Trail system as well. Just on the other side of that, the town owns some property. And I don't know if you can move your mouse over the thing there, Paul. If not, that's okay. Over the kiosk. Yeah, so that's the kiosk that's there. So the proposal is to put parking along there. There's been a lot of discussion about the lack of parking in St. Andrews. And while that's not in the downtown core, I think it's 4 or 5 blocks, it certainly is walkable and easily. And then for those that want to, they've been looking for a trailhead parking for a while. There's nothing official, and that would go a long ways towards that too. There's someone who's always amazed. I'll go out on the trail for whatever reason to look at condition assessments or something in the summer, and you just can't believe the number of people that routinely pass by there any time of the day, any time of the week. It's amazing. So I think this is a big addition to our parking inventory for council's consideration. So funding. So part of the increase in the tax base was to provide $1.2 million in revenue that's able to go towards funding. So that's internal funding. Government grants, the big one being the wharf project of 1.8 million. We are predicting a borrowing of about 1.1 million this year. Capital reserves are money that we've set aside over the years, and there's 695,000 set aside that we can put towards that. And previously discussed, we have this tourism development fund, so money that we already have in hand that are going to be put towards the washroom project, and if council proceeds, the parking project. One of the questions that always comes up is on, and it's a good question, is on general fund debt. So the province of New Brunswick looks what they call the tax ratio, or the debt ratio. They usually say 20% by regulation is the max they want you to go. 10% is where they start asking you a lot of questions before you make more borrowings. As you can see, that it takes a fairly steep increase in 26 and 27, completely related to the wharf project. That between that and the fire truck, that's a significant amount of borrowing over the, compared to what we've done. All vital pieces of tools, all vital economic drivers, but that's what goes it. And again, everything else is kind of generated internally, but everything beyond any new additions beyond 2026 are really just proposals and recommendations by staff. All of it that we put in beyond next year are based on asset management planning, not any things we'd like to have. These are things that are replace buildings and equipment that are falling apart. So that's where it looks if we follow the plan that's there. So the utility operating fund has a total budget of 1.3 million roughly. There's growth of about 8% in user fees. We're thinking that there will be more revenue from the consumption billing. The big thing is that a lot of the businesses that restaurants, even apartment buildings that with only a few units and things were only on the flat rate system for a lot of years. Now that we've gone back to consumption based, they should be paying considerably more than they were under the old system where it was just generated across. I will know that we aren't making any recommendations on the user fee increases this year, except that our bylaw that was passed a couple of years ago does allow for annual increase of 2% in the user fees, which allows staff to do it without bringing it to council. We can talk about that, and I'll usually let you know that we're about to do that, but that's automatically worked within the system. Expenses have increased by 4%. So utility capital for in-ground projects, there's about 505,000 on Prince of Wales. So many of you probably saw up near the Algonquin earlier this spring, there's a big repair job that came at the last minute. I think it's one of those again that we found water leaking out of the ground on a Friday afternoon, worked all weekend to get it repaired. That whole line is up, it's decades and decades old. It's been discussed about, but it's getting to the point where it needs to be replaced. And so we'd like to do that. Carlton Street, it's probably going to be torn up with the old Bryan building going in. And so along there, that block, we should put a new water line in to add extra capacity. And so that all those projects are completed. And then there are various equipment upgrades at the water treatment plant and the wastewater treatment plant that equals about 171,000. They are listed individually on the budget, but just condensed for tonight's discussion. The utility is considered high in capital. Operating is relatively low to the capital cost of keeping it going. So the province allows you to borrow up to 50%. until they start really questioning you. What the regulation says, you can borrow as much as you want as long as you have user fees to support it. And so, we could replace every line in town and then, charge people $1 million per user for the water, and they'd be okay with that. But even with what we're doing now, it looks like the borrowing is going to go up to about 40% in 5 years. And that's assuming a fairly high level of granting. So there's going to be a big discussion this spring, winter, that we're going to pull it out with council and show the long-term breakdown and have a discussion on long-term user fees, where you want to go. The problem has been that almost all municipalities have these assets, especially in ground that lasts 50, 70, 100 years. Good management would be putting a few dollars away every year to offset it. So when it comes time to replacement, you have cash in hand. No one did it, cities included, big cities included. And so we're playing catch up. And so at some point, it's got to be done. And the town of St. Andrews has done a good process over the last 15, 20 years of keeping up with that, so we don't get too far behind. But it's still going to have to be discussed and looked at. So moving forward we're hoping to have the 4 budgets approved tonight. The province was looking for them. They do have a regulation. They say when the assessment bases are released, I think it's 30 days or 28 days, you're supposed to have your budgets in. Very few people do. But it was due on November the 29th. I let them know we're coming tonight and hoping to approve it. We've had this, council's seen it multiple times. And so we'd like those approved. Moving forward, we've got really 2 meetings or 2 discussions in this winter, spring. We are going to review the capital assets and kind of where they go. And again, this is common when you take asset management courses, they all say the same thing, that people want to keep increasing operations and forget the cost of the assets that supply them. So we're looking at putting that down on paper and having a good discussion so council and the public are aware of the cost. We had done this back in 2012, and we bring it up every year, but it'd be good to really formalize it and prepare a document on behalf of the town. Something that's not there that I missed, but as we discussed in a meeting or 2 ago, we are going to revisit the share allocation formula on shared costs. And we'll do that in the spring and have a discussion on that to see. Having said that, the tax rate for all communities have gone down, the mill rate compared to amalgamation. I'll fully admit that assessments have gone way up, so individuals are paying higher tax bills. I understand that. And that's it, council. I don't know if you want questions now or wait until the motion of the budget in a few minutes.
What is your answer to that, council? Do you want to question him now or later? During the budget, please.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Spear. And thanks for a wonderful presentation. Okay. So we're now into F, which is the approval of the minutes of the previous meetings. Is there any additions to the minutes as you read them over, council, this week? Seeing none, then I'll do what the mayor does and go through them very quickly. So we have the minutes of the 24/11/04 regular meeting of council Monday, November the 4th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. I need a first and a seconder. First, Councillor Harland. Seconder, Councillor Heenan. Are you ready for the question? All those in favor, say aye. Contrary minded? There's none, so it carried unanimously. The minutes of the 24/11/12 special council meeting Tuesday, November the 12th, 2024 at 6 p.m. I need a first. Councillor Gumashal and seconder, Councillor Hurdle. Are you ready for the question, council? All those in favor say aye. Contrary minded? No contrary minded, so carried. And the third set of minutes of the 24/11/18 regular council meeting, Monday, November the 18th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. I need a first and a seconder.
Mayor,
Councillor Heenan and Councillor Gumashal. Sorry. Oh, sorry, Mayor, I forgot you. I'll have to let the mayor go, Counselor go, Michelle.
I thought it was my chance to make the minutes for
Right.
moving. Oh,
Goodness, I didn't see you up there. Sorry. Now you know how Counselor Blanchard feels. Um, ready for the question, Council? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? None. So carried. Now we're into communications. There are none, as far as I know, from today. And we are into the staff reports, which is H. So Counselor Spear, Mr. Spear, we're at you again. Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. You should keep trying to promote me, but there are things called elections that we do have to follow once in a while. Yeah. So thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, Council. As 2024 draws to a close, I am certain we are all happy to see a quieter month ahead after a busy fall with many meetings and public consultation. Thank you for allowing me to present the last report for 2024. Under Council, the budget process is drawing to a conclusion after the process started in early September. Internally, included 8 meetings with Council. Earlier tonight, I gave a presentation on the proposed 2025 budget, including the mill rates, which were reduced for both tax zones. I wish to thank Council for your leadership, frank discussion, insights as we prepare ourselves for 2025. This process also would not be possible without the commitment of staff bringing forward suggestions and needed information. The Heritage Bylaw is being put forth for the third and final reading. This is the third attempt in my time on staff that this has been considered. So I appreciate the efforts of the Heritage Committee that forged ahead and for Council's willingness to consider it again. If it goes through, we will work with the RSC and committee to communicate the initiatives to the affected property owner, and when the changes could affect them, not what time date, but exactly at what process could it affect them. Before you tonight is an opportunity to discuss the proposal as put forward by the St. Andrews Civic Trust around the courthouse, jail and commons. They have provided a 5-year plan in addition to the larger documents presented several weeks ago. Their initial plan is to foster a relationship with financiers, hire more consultants to determine the full condition of the building, and approach external funding partners on financing the proposals. Staff are looking for direction on the next steps, even if that is delaying the discussion into 2025, so we can have a meeting devoted to this topic, if you wish. Within the agenda this week is the appointment of the auditor for the 2024 financial statements. While an annual appointment is not necessary by act or regulation, it is a best practice to have a motion of council. Saunders and Doyle were originally appointed for 5 years in 2012 and have been a valued partner since. Under administration, lots of news from the water utility this month. In the 2024 capital budget, Council authorized the replacement of a strainer that had malfunctioned and needed to be taken offline. On Tuesday, December the 10th, starting at 9 p.m., we'll be starting this process to remove that and install the new component. The plant will not be operational, but there will be enough water in the reservoirs to meet the town's needs overnight. But please conserve water accordingly if you are on the municipal supply. Also, we would likely be on a boil water advisory for 48 to 72 hours, so 2 to 3 days afterwards. So plan it accordingly and store water for consumption. I will say too that we're planning on doing a door-to-door handout tomorrow to all affected property owners that we can get to. It'll be on Voyant and it'll be on the website, and its letters have been sent to the businesses through the BIA and the St. Andrews Chamber of Commerce. As a result of the Canada Post strike, water bills will be delayed until that is rectified in order to allow for a proper payment due date for our customers. Internally, we will have a billing report available to let any interested property owners know how much their fall billings will be, even if we cannot distribute bills. Thank you for your understanding. I've heard today that St. John and Moncton are making property owners responsible. Not suggesting that, but if the strike seems to go on and on and on, it may have to be discussed by council early in the new year if we want to go to a plan B on distributing those bills. It needs to be noted that Shamcook Lake is at a low level compared to the last several years. Even if we do not have immediate concerns over the volume needed to maintain traditional usage for the town, It is advisable that users practice conservation until we receive significant rain or snow events. The Provincial Emergency Measures Organization has given a series of updates to prepare municipalities for severe weather events and suggestions on how to be ready. The Stein Lake fire in 2023 and the winter storms of 23-24 allowed us to test our center and ability to put in services quickly, which overall went well. We have identified a mitigation project that could allow council to proceed forward with the original plan for the wharf project. Brought forward by Ducks Unlimited, this project is important to the ecosystem in the affected wetland, but it is financially a relatively small project that we originally feared. At the writing of this report, we hope to have a proposal in your hands for consideration, which I did just before the meeting. We can then head to the final design and prepare for a tender in a few months if council wishes. The new ladder truck is approximately 90% completed. There were supply chain issues that have delayed this severely as we tendered it in the first half of 2022. However, it is an appreciated and needed piece of apparatus that will likely be the first or second truck out of the door to respond to fire calls. But I didn't add, it should be in our hands by the end of January. They hope to bring it to a New Brunswick dealer the week before Christmas. We'll do some further testing and prepare it to our standards and then release it to us. In early November, there was a meeting of the Provincial Planning and Appeals Board held in St. Andrews to address an appeal of the PAC decision regarding the proposed lobster holding facility in Shamcook. I know many of you are interested in it, but the only update is that a decision has not been rendered as of the writing of this report, or looking at the clerk, as of right now, we haven't had any news back. Services. November was a very busy month for Public Works, as they finished up the lemon leaf programs, put up and took down Remembrance Day banners and installed the annual Christmas displays around town. In addition, they have aided with new plumbing at the arena. As a note, it takes our full crew a whole week to put up the Christmas decoration and another 2 to 3 days to take them down. So about 350 labor hours a year for the display, plus another 2 hours to the CO, giving them my ideas on how to make it better, which I don't think they ever take into consideration. The fire department has added 2 members recently, Andrew Jacobs and Ryan O'Connell. On behalf of the mayor, council, and myself, I wish to welcome them and thank them both for their commitment to the community. We also wish to acknowledge our own fire department for the quick response to the structure fire November 9th at the Herring. In addition, we are grateful that the fire services of St. Stephen and Eastern Charlotte also responded quickly to ensure a bad situation did not get out of control. The seniors program being put up by the manager of recreation are gaining traction as new and expanded activities are being added. Reach out to Town Hall or go to the Town of St. Andrews Parks and Recreation Facebook page for more information. We also wish to thank the donor of a full turkey that allowed the youth center to have a traditional turkey dinner outside the normal holidays. There are still lots of activities going on for youth 12 to 18 at the center, so check with Mervyn, Debbie, or Sandy on the various initiatives. In conclusion, the tree lighting and Sparkle by the Sea took place this past weekend, with many more activities over the next couple of weeks as well, including the parade and Skate with Santa on December the 7th. After an absence since the pandemic, the Ross Memorial Museum open house is also taking place this year from December 5th to 8th at 1 to 5 p.m. on December 5th and 1 to 9 p.m. on the 6th and 7th, and 12 to 5 on December the 8th. I also wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, or joyful Kwanzaa this December. May you enjoy the season and the activities that surround it. I am grateful for the privilege of working with the residents of Bayside, Shamcook, and St. Andrews, and thankful for the dedicated staff who work to make the town what it is. I also want to recognize the many volunteers who serve on municipal committees and boards that allow us to offer programs and services that most of 2000s are not able to do. Respectfully submitted, Chris Beer, Chief Administrative Officer. Your microphone.
Thank you, Mr. Spear, for a wonderful report. Now we need to do the reports as a whole.
Any questions?
Oh, sorry, any questions? Council or
No.
Members
Just
of the
council.
council.
council? The mayor? Didn't forget you this time. All right, so there being no questions, can I have a mover? First mover, Counselor Gumshoe. Counselor Harlan. Any more discussion? No? So all those in favor, say aye. Contrary minded? None, so carried. So now we are on to introductions, consideration, and passing of bylaws and motions. And with this, your worship, I have to step out for the community assistance grants, and I'll leave it in your capable hands.
Thank you.
We'll let you know, Mayor Henderson, when the deputy mayor has exited the room.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. And since it's her portfolio and she does exit, Counselor Neal, do you mind leading it?
Actually, Councillor Heenan has already volunteered prior to the meeting.
Oh, thank you very much, Counselor. He has excellent reading skills as well, so I think we'll be okay.
Okay, we're all set, your worship.
Go ahead,
Okay,
Counselor Heenan.
okay, Your Worship, thank you very much, audience. Reference number FA 241128, Community Assistant Grant requests over $3,000 for the 2025 budget. In August 2024, Council put out a call to the community organizations who are seeking a community assistant grant of over $3,000 for the 2025 year. On October the 1st, 2024, Council was provided with presentations from 7 organizations. Council received an ask for approximately $85,000 in funding. Please see the motion below for the proposed funding allocations. The Mental Wellness Committee will have a separate budget line of $5,000 for programming and events. The total funding support for requests is $25,500. Note that Council has already provided $500 to the Winter Warmer Festival as approved at the November 4th, 2024 regular Council meeting. The total community assets grants earmarked for 2025 is $26,000. It is recommended that Council establish a budget of $40,000 for 2025 to have funds available for requests under $3,000. This would provide Council with $14,000 in funding. The motion is, Your Worship, that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews approves the following community assistant grants for 2025 for funding requests over $3,000. Number 1, Charlotte County Transportation Dial-A-Ride, $3,000 and up to $5,000 if Eastern Charlotte or the Municipal District of St. Stephen matches a $5,000 donation. Number 2, Katie's Cove Incorporated, $15,000 plus additional town support for garbage collection, grass cutting, and minor maintenance. 3, Big Brothers Big Sisters of Charlotte County, $2,000 to support the Propel program. 4, Sunbury Shores, $2,000 to support heat pump repairs. 5, St. Croix Blades, $500 to help with the bridge funding. 6, St. Andrews Pickleball, $1,000 to help with rental costs. 7, Vincent Massey Elementary School, $2,000 plus in-kind support from Public Works for the development of an outdoor classroom space along Carlton Street. I so move this, Your Worship.
I appreciate that, Counselor Heenan. Could I have a seconder? I've got Counselor Neal. Discussion on this one. Counselor Bennett, I see your hand.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. We heard from many organizations and groups asking for a lot of money this year. The couple of weeks ago when we had our meeting, we had $85,000 in requests. I brought up last week when we were discussing this that we're a community of 3,000 people, and we're approving $40,000 in grants to the community, all of which go to good causes and stuff. But I pointed out that St. George is 12,000 people, and they have about a 10% higher tax base than us, and their total grants equal $20,000. where I'm trying to get at this is, I think $40,000 is excessive. We're moving into a time where we're borrowing tremendous amounts of money. Our CAO just explained to us that we're gonna borrow 1.14 million this year. And yet we're taking $40,000 and giving it away. So in all reality, we're giving away 40,000 real dollars from the community, from our tax base, but we're borrowing more than that to cover off other issues. I feel that this is wrong. I feel that the request specifically for Katie's Cove Inc. of $15,000 is excessive. I believe that makes the town a benefactor. I don't believe that this is charity. I believe that that's making us a benefactor, and the taxpayers shouldn't be a benefactor. And for these reasons, I will not support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Anyone else? All right.
Councillor Ware, your motion.
Councillor Ware.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, question one thing and point out something. And it is to do with the $15,000 contribution. I don't know whether we're doing that as a economic development initiative for the tourism industry, or if we're doing it as a social program for the town. But certainly the Local Governance Act does have a requirement that for economic development grants, we do have a requirement that we be provided with an annual report containing the information on the grant and how it was spent, and on the basically the finances of the organization. And I'm just curious as to whether we have ever received that from Katie's Cove Inc.
Yeah, usually they come in and present. I believe as part of their presentation, we gave documentation October with all these requests, and I believe they included their full financial disclosure plus their budget for next year on this.
Correct.
And we can supply that again if you like.
Anyone else? Councillor Harlan.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson and Council. I appreciate Councillor Bennett's perspective in terms of the fact that the $40,000 is a significant chunk of change for us as a small municipality. However, I also think that we as a council have responsibility to assist our community in growing and in establishing opportunities for our community members, families, organizations to move forward in developing the services that they are providing. I was amazed at the work that they were doing and the presentations that they provided us. And we are a small town of 3,000 people. And the amount of volunteer hours, as Mr. Spear indicated in his report, is incredible, that we have such dedicated individuals in this community to assist in us providing so many opportunities for our community members and our families. So while I appreciate that the $40,000 is a significant amount of money, I am pleased that we are able to find it in our budget so that we can support these organizations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harlan. Anyone else?
Back to Councillor Ware, your worship.
Okay, no one else. I'll go back to Councillor Will. We'll do a second round then. Councillor Ware.
Thank you, Your Worship. I guess I just want to make a general statement with respect to $40,000. We heard a presentation by the CAO that we are falling behind. We're pushing capital projects ahead. There's going to come a time that we're going to be in, I hate to use the word financial difficulty, but if we don't start acting in a more fiscally responsible manner and start setting aside money. In fact, we don't even have to set it aside. We'd start spending it on some of our infrastructure, that we're going to get to the point where some other municipalities in this province were in dire straits. And this has been going on, from what I understand, a number of years. I've only been here a couple of years, and it can't go on forever. We are not a provincial or a federal government that can run deficits. We must have a balanced budget, and eventually water mains and street paving and all those types of things are going to catch up with us. We had decided, or a previous council had decided, to spend 1.5 million on paving. We don't come anywhere near it. So, when is this all going to suddenly collapse on us? And all I'm saying, not against any of the grants specifically, but we're going to have to become much more prudent and much more fiscally responsible in how we administer the town's finances. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Ware. Anyone else? All right. Councillor Heenan.
Yes, Your Worship. Councillor Weir brings up a point about being fiscally responsible. I believe investing money into the town and into some of these organizations is really being perfectly fiscally responsible, because it allows us to grow as a town. It allows us to keep our programs going. It allows us to keep residents living here. So I'm totally in disagreement with that. We're talking $40,000, and how much would that be on a tax on our mill rate?
Roughly about half a cent.
So half a cent is going to our mill rate to make sure that clubs and organizations stay in this town. I really feel that this is being responsible. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Councillor Heenan. Any other member of council? All right. So I will call the question then. All in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye. And opposed? And if I'm seeing that correctly, I see 2 opposed, so the motion is carried.
Right.
Okay, Deputy Mayor Akaji can come back. I'll just say while she's coming back, council, all of the dialogue was certainly healthy. The reality is on the outside, not entering debate, I think everybody that spoke is right. It is a significant amount of money. We do talk all the time about having to make tough decisions. This was not as much as the organizations were looking for from town council. Council did have to make some tough decisions and not support organizations to the level in which they thought they would be. So to anyone that was hoping to get more money or get money that is not on this list, we certainly apologize, but there is a certain amount which a municipality can fund, to some of the councillors' points. But on the other side of that, some of these programs that are funded, I think, are critical to the town of St. Andrews, and the fact that council supports them. I want to acknowledge that vote getting carried forward. Organizations like Doyle, if Doyle wasn't here for our region, I couldn't imagine how a lot of people make it to their medical appointments that live in our community, and other necessities like, they even deliver groceries. Deputy Mayor's looking for bags all the time. And let's use one that is going to apply with our smaller amounts. Charlotte County Search and Rescue, the amount of work that they do in St. Andrews, we've had a number of missing cases over last year where they've been combing beaches, unfortunately. To give them, I think it's like $1,000 a year from a municipality. I think that that's a small gesture to say thank you to these organizations for what they do for the town of St. Andrews. So again, I think that was healthy dialogue. I think that everybody was right. We do have to be involved in organizations in our community to make sure they are successful. But in the same sense, there is a balance with competing priorities like our asset management plan, which clearly indicates, especially to get into the utility side, that really tough financial decisions are going to have to be made in the future. So council, again, thank you for passing that. I can only see myself while I talk, so I'm hoping Deputy Mayor Akaji is back.
I am. I thought you forgot me.
Welcome back. Pass it back to
Might be
you.
in there. Thank you very much, Mayor, for doing that for me. All right, Councillor Heenan, you continue on with number 2.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council, FA 241220, Town of St. Andrews budget. The background reads, the Council of the Town of St. Andrews has been deliberating over the months of September, October, and November on the 2025 budget. Provided with this report is a copy of the draft 2025 budget for approval. Please see staff report from Mr. Chris Spear, CAO Treasurer, for details. The motion is that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews approves the 2025 general operating and general capital budget for the Town of St. Andrews, as well as the projections for the same 2026 to 2029 approved, and that the 2025 general operating fund budget totals $18,161, including a tax warrant of $6,436,880 on a mill rate of 1.0506 for each 100 assessments for the St. Andrews, and a mill rate of 0.5395 for each 100 assessment for Bayside and Shamcook. Council orders and directs the levy by the Minister of Local Government of said amount on real property liable to taxation under the Assessment Act within the Town of St. Andrews, and that the general capital projects for 2025 budget be funded at $1,222,371 from the General Operating Fund, $1,117,000 from long-term borrowing, $1,830,000 from government grants, $185,000 from Canada Community Building Fund, $203,000 from Tourism Development Fund, $50,000 from donations, and $695,029 from the General Capital Reserve Fund. And Your Worship, I so move this.
Thank you, Councillor Heenan. We need a seconder. Councillor Gumashal. Any further discussion on this? Yeah, Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor and Council. So again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but going back to being fiscally accountable. And at this time, I feel that I can't support this budget as presented. Councillor Weir brought up over the past couple of months quite well that asked for discussions on the fiscal accountability, and we call it buckets. And even though we moved to a model where now Bayside and Shamcook are paying thirds, we pay a third, town pays 2/3 because we're 1/3 of the population. And I don't disagree with that formula. However, associated costs along with services such as town water and public works are very singular and really only, pertain to the town. Yet all the administration of it is shared by the burden of the cost by 1/3 by Bayside and Shamcook, 2/3 by the town. So for just for example, we brought up tonight here, the town office basically has an expense of 1.8 million. So therefore 600,000 gets billed out to Bayside and Shamcook. And that'd be great if we received all the same services. However, we don't. We fall far short of those services. I'll bring up again that I've been bringing up since the minute I got on council here about the roads and the services in Bayside and Shamcook and the poor services we were receiving from DTI. And here we are now, almost exactly 2 years from the start, and we haven't even had a meeting with DTI. Bayside and Shamcook services are lacking, and I don't believe that we're receiving fair and just representation by that town office or by this council. I'm not blaming town or town staff or the council for the poor services receiving from DTI, but if we're not proactive, if we're not fighting, if we're not out there raising a stink about it, then our services will just continue to diminish. This medical clinic that we're sitting in right now, that's just adjacent to us, is a beautiful building. And it's a wonderful testimony to what the town can do. The fact that they were given $500,000 for a grant to build a medical facility, but that also left a delta of $500,000 that the town pays for in debt that's spiraling out of control. I brought up earlier about how St. George gives $20,000 for the grants, and they're 4 times our population and 10% more of a tax base than us. Well, just like they pay $20,000 St. George for their grants, they give $20,000 towards their medical clinic. Well, obviously, if we just paid for the rent, if we just gave free housing to our medical clinic here, it would equal out to be far more than $20,000. But on top of that, we pay $87,000 towards most of the expenses of that medical clinic. That's $87,000 that I don't believe is fair, that the taxpayers should be subsidizing this medical clinic to the point that it is. That $87,000 is contributing to overall debt that we're going to bring forward this year and next year and every other year until we do something about it. I'm not saying that we don't need a medical clinic. I'm not saying that it's not a valuable thing for the community. However, paying $87,000 worth of expenses on top of giving them free housing is excessive, especially when most people don't have access to that medical clinic. I've also already brought up about being a benefactor for Katie's Cove Inc. And I'm not saying that Katie's Cove Inc. and every other thing that was brought up is not valuable to the community. And just like what my esteemed colleague here, Councillor Heenan, said about the wonderful things that these community groups do. However, again, there's a big difference I see from being a community grant of $1,000 or $2,000 for a community group and being a benefactor of tens of thousands of dollars like Katie's Cove Inc. I don't believe that this council should be creating more debt in that's going to be carried forth in councils to come because of that money that we're borrowing. And last, I'd like to bring up about the tourist accommodation levy. So on a reoccurring basis now, we're collecting approximately $500,000 in the tourist accommodation levy. However, the council decided in the past that 1/3 of that money would come to council to be spent on things that we need, and 2/3 would go to Explore St. Andrews. That $500,000, if it was spent on all the items in town that pertain to tourism, then the people who live in Bayside, Shamcook, and St. Andrews wouldn't be fundraising or wouldn't be borrowing more money and being taxed to provide those tourist services. I do believe that tourist accommodation levy should be paying for the services that are directly related to tourism in the community. And if we did so, then it would be much fairer for the residents who have nothing to do with tourism. The whole point I'm trying to say is fiscal responsibility, as what Councillor Weir just said, is something that's important. The debt is spiraling out of control, and the only way to solve that issue with debt is if we tackle it and we get tough with the numbers and we start spending our money very fiscally responsible. And for those reasons, as the way the budget sits right now, I will not support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Any other discussion, Councillor Weir?
I know I'm starting to sound like a broken record, but fiscal responsibility is one of our main duties here as a council. And we've been, or at least I've been hearing for the last 2 years, that we're falling behind in our attempts to keep our infrastructure up to date. We should be spending $1.5 million on paving, only spending $500,000, $750,000, half as much as we should. There's going to come a day when potholes are going to become innumerable. I just feel that we have to make tough decisions every year. We cannot pass this lack of infrastructure or this poor infrastructure onto future councils and to the youth that's growing up in this town. And it's our responsibility to pay for it, and it's our responsibility to do it in a fiscally responsible manner without putting taxes completely out of line. With respect to DTI, I have two concerns. Number one, we don't get the support at the municipal level to get things done with DTI. I know Councilor Bennett and I have them on speed dial, but they don't pay much attention to us. We're just councilors calling in. But what really, I hate to use the word, but what really irks me is that many times I've sit here and heard, well, our rate in town is only 20 cents mill rate for transportation. And you folks, it's the province's fault, you're paying 41 cents. But we are also paying a third of the cost of town hall. And town hall spends a substantial portion of its time on transportation, streets, that type of thing. All we've got to do is think back over the last 5 to 6 weeks. We've had presentations on four-way stop signs, speeding traps set up coming into town, moving trees, all kinds of stuff. But we're paying 1/3 of the cost of town hall doing all that work. But yet, if I got a pothole or I got a shoulder that needs fixing out on 127 in Bayside, I have to call the district engineer myself. Or if there's bushes in the way where I've often thought of calling public safety as opposed to DTI because it is a public safety matter. Shouldn't have to do that. That should be part of the duties. And that's why I made the comment a month ago that there is a structural bias in the operations of the town. It is biased towards the old town board. And we only get any action as if we request it. There's not much done proactively. But I'm not going to go on anymore on this fiscal responsibility. I think we're doing a disservice to the future citizens of this town by not doing our infrastructure and by letting it keep pushing it ahead every year. And it's I just find it untenable. I just can't accept it. With respect to the budget, I did bring up the 1/3 that we are paying and that maybe that should be reduced. I was told there was 27,000 being charged over. I thought 27 to both the utility and 27 to the transportation department. Turns out it was only 27 to the utility. But then when I look at the budget that is presented here tonight, there is in the utility budget a $50,000 charge payment to the town hall for the services they provide to the town hall. I am in no position to judge that, but it sounds like a step in the right direction to me. I'm quite happy with it. But yet when I go to the budget for the town, there's only $27,594 in income reported in the town. In other words, the two budgets aren't even in agreement with one another. So how can we pass budgets that don't correspond? You know, the numbers aren't the same. If there's 50,000 in one, there should be 50,000 in the other. Yeah, it's an error. And that's what I said, the structural errors in the budget. And we have to eliminate those structural errors. And in my profession, I can't vote for a budget that has mathematical errors in it. Simple as that. And I've been trying to read the Local Governance Act. I thought I read at one point in time that we had until the second Friday in December to get this in, which would be Friday the 13th. But perhaps I'm wrong. I'm just getting to learn that act. But I assure you, well, I will know it by the end of my term. So that is why I'm having a real problem with the budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Weir. Any other councillor? Councillor Harland?
Thank you. So Mr. Spear, can you just help us understand a couple of things? One is, have we requested meetings with DTI with respect to the roads in Shamcook and Bayside in particular?
I in touch at least monthly with DTI with usually minimal response.
Right. And is that the case with our, from your knowledge with your counterparts in other municipalities, is anyone else having greater uptake with DTI?
Maybe those that have the Minister of Transportation in their riding, but in general cases, no.
Okay, thank you. And can you just clarify in terms of Councillor Weir asking or speaking to errors in the budget, can you help me understand what that speaks to?
Sure. So there's two different things. So that 27,000 versus 50 is a typo, no doubt about it. Keeping in mind, we're talking 1/1000th of a cent difference on a $7 million budget. Is it erroneous? Yep. I apologize, but 700 lines, something like this can happen. But as other things is just a discussion we've had back and forth that council has made the decision. It should be noted that, as we've explained, that the mayor's talked about that if we follow the strict formula of the province, that the rate for Bayside and Shamcook could technically be over and above
Right.
the old Board of St. Andrews. So there is a reduction, although the formula starts off as a third of the cost, we reduce the mill rate to offset that sum.
Right.
And we've committed to working in the spring, as discussed, about looking at it and trying to come up with a more formalized policy moving forward. So future budgets and future councils can look at this. But I've cross-referenced about 90% of the budget, even as of today. And as far as errors throughout, except for that one, no.
Okay.
And even that can be, if it's passed by council tonight, which I think it should be, it can be offset by debt. It can, as you know, the budgets go up and down tremendously.
Right.
So even going into 2025, we can adjust it so that the 50,000 is correctly transferred across, which will eventually work its way through to all taxpayers.
Okay. And thank you for that. And we've met 6 times
6 to 8 times we're trying to count.
specifically on the budget. And we've gone through exercises of going through budget reports line by line. From my perspective, there has been tremendous transparency by town staff in terms of helping us. This is not my background, so I have really appreciated your staff's ability to help us understand what makes up the budget. Again, from your experience in terms of counterparts in other municipalities, recognizing that we're just coming up to the completion of year 2 of amalgamation. Are we in any different position than many of our counterparts across the province?
In what way?
In terms of, well, to use Councillor Weir's wording, the structural biases. So in terms of understanding what is appropriate or fair for Bayside and Shamcook to be paying versus the former town of St. Andrews. One of the challenges I have with that is that we are one municipality now, and we need to move forward. What happens here in the town of, from my perspective, what happens here in the town of St. Andrews, if a road gets fixed by town crew, and they do a marvelous job, we've heard that from other councillors that they do a fantastic job in fixing the roads here. I benefit from that because I drive on these roads. I might not benefit when I go home, but I benefit when I come in to do my grocery shopping, to do all the things that I do here in town. So I don't have the same perspective as Councillor Weir in terms of the structural bias. I do think that this is a process. And what I remember Mr. Knopper saying way back when we first started down this road of amalgamation, that generally it takes about 10 years for municipalities to figure out and have all of the dust settle in terms of how we operate as a newly amalgamated municipality. So if that's correct, I feel that this budget that you've currently presented is a good iteration for this year. Not perfect. We will continue the discussions in 2025 in terms of this bucket discussion around what should be in what bucket. But from my perspective, we have diligently reviewed the budgets, and I feel quite confident that this is a good budget going forward for 2025. Thank you.
Thank you. If I could just touch on one point that you and Councillor Weir both made. The allocation of costs to the newly up areas into the municipalities or different tax zone is a discussion among most municipalities. Many of them are doing as we've proposed, that they allocate it based on the assessment on what we call the shared costs, and then adjust mill rates accordingly, what they think is fair. So I talked to 3 or 4 fairly large municipalities, and that's how they're doing it. At the end of the day, that's a discussion and a policy by council. It really is. That it's they didn't give us the complete operating and instruction manual when they had local government reform, and they left it up to each local government to figure it out and what worked in their local case. So that's what we're going to try to do in the first quarter of next year, to analyze it at a deeper level and figure out what's next.
Thank you, Mr. Spear, and thank you, Councillor Harland. And just a minute till we check with other people before I go back to you, Councillor Weir. Any other councillor wish to speak now? Okay, Councillor Weir.
Well, this is 3rd, 4th time in the last 2 months I've been basically told I'm out in left field. I really I really don't know how to deal with it because I believe I have a rational mind. I believe I have the professional training to do this. I've worked on the budgets of municipalities as big as Halifax, Bathurst, and as small as Blacks Harbor. So this is not my first rodeo. I don't know how Councillor Harlan can say she represents the people of Shamcook. I don't drive the streets of St. Andrews. I have no reason to come here. When I moved here 15 years ago, I didn't look at a house in St. Andrews. I had no desire to live in St. Andrews. It's a beautiful town. It's historic. It's everything wonderful. But that's not who I am. I'm a country boy. I like living out in the sticks. And even though I've worked in New York and Toronto and everywhere, I like it out in the sticks. I'm always getting reprimanded, predominantly by Councillor Heenan or Councillor Harlan, for my views. And I guess I've reached the point where I'm not going to put up with it anymore. I think back to the discussion on the deer matter where Councillor Heenan made a great speech on Darwin, and it was 100% wrong. There wasn't a factual thing in it. 100% wrong. I didn't say anything. I let
I
him.
think we're getting off track here, Counselor Weir.
And
You need to bring it back to the budget.
the budget.
not
And
on
I'm
Councillor
saying fiscal responsibility, but every time I bring up fiscal responsibility, I get attacked. And I'm not used to that. On Friday, December the 6th, I will have been in my profession 50 years. And trust me, my brain has not deteriorated one little bit. My hands shake, my voice shakes at times, but mentally, I'm right where I've ever been. And anyone wants to debate the fiscal aspects of this town, I'm certainly willing to sit down across the desk and debate it. And I think we have to have respect for other councillors, but at the same time, respect earns respect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Counselor Weir and Counselor Harlan.
Counselor Weir, I just want to clarify, my comments in no way were intended for them to indicate or indicate that you were out to left field. I was asking for clarification from Mr. Spear because of some of the things that you said. So if they were taken that way, my apologies. That was not the intent. I always appreciate hearing from all of my fellow councillors. I think one of the things that Mayor Henderson has said many times, that healthy dialogue, healthy debate is important and is encouraged at the council table. And that's what I felt has happened here tonight. In no way was that directed at you. I was expressing my opinion and getting clarification from Mr. Spear. So if that felt personal, my apologies. That certainly wasn't what it was intended.
Thank you, Counselor Harlan and Counselor Heenan.
Yes, Your Worship. In light of what has been said this evening, I will assure council that I will not be hushed by fear of anyone threatening me with the way that I'm spoken or what I have said. I'm very, very, like Counselor Weir has said, I am now 64 years old and I have come through a lot of things, Counselor Weir. And you may have had the numbers and you may have the initials after your name, but I can assure you, sir, that I have sat on many a
Counselor
budget.
Heenan, we need to be on the budget.
Yeah.
now.
Well, on the
Sorry.
budget. So when I say I look at the budget, then that is what I do. And I just want it perfectly clear that I take it very seriously. The numbers are very serious to me, and I look at every one of them. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Heenan. And I know the mayor has always said that we speak, we're allowed to speak and we're allowed to state our opinions. And that's what I've liked about this council is that we've been able to do that and then leave it here. Anybody else? Counselor Hurdle.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I'm very hesitant to walk into this this minefield right now. So to me, sorry, I think the real issue is conflicting points of view. And I think that we reach compromise by considering and embracing all points of view. And I think where we're getting a little bit caught up here, and again, Councilor Red, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I think what I'm seeing is that you've been forced into a partnership and so Councilor Bennett, I feel the same way that your point of view is coming across. You've sort of been forced into a partnership on an amalgam of a community that you didn't necessarily want, or at least are going to fight your best to make sure is clear and that you represent the people that you represent as fairly as possible. And I think that that is absolutely reasonable. But I also feel that I have a reasonable point of view as well. And where I guess I come across is that I think that you aren't separate members of the community. You are residents of all of St. Andrews. And this isn't something that I don't think that any councillor on this table decided. But I think it's something that unfortunately, from the points of view that I'm hearing here, has happened. And so I think that when you're saying that Bayside or Shamcook shouldn't pay for services, what I hear is that you're saying that a resident of St. Andrews shouldn't pay for services in the town of St. Andrews. That's, to me, the reality of where we are right now. And it doesn't mean that I don't absolutely respect your point of view and don't think you shouldn't be fighting the fight that you're fighting, because fiscal responsibility is absolutely important. And I hope you never feel it to left field when I'm talking, when we're having a conversation. I'll Councilor Weir as well, because every time you open your mouth, I learn something. And I learned about how to be a little bit more fiscally conservative as well. So in terms of my point of view, I think it's just conflicting that I don't see residents of Bayside as residents of Bayside now. I see them as members of the town of St. Andrews. And I think that in order for us to get along, we're going to have to start to think more that way, because that's the situation the province has forced us to be in. I think if we continue to look at ourselves as three distinct communities, we're going to need to have three distinct governments to manage those three distinct communities. And that wasn't what was the outcome of this. And I get that that's not what you wanted, and that's not what most people in the communities wanted either, but it's where we are. And if we continue to not try to compromise on this and not give and take, which I think we've done a pretty good job until this point, don't get me wrong. I think we're going to be holding each other hostage and we're not going to get anywhere. So in terms of the budget, I think that if I look at this from all members of the town of St. Andrews are residents of the community, I have to support it because that's the way that I look at it. But doesn't mean that I don't see your point of view and the way that you're looking at it, because I do. And you think that and I think that you would and should fight for the constituents of your areas as well. But I don't think that's the way forward. Anyway, that's my point of view. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hurdle. Any further discussion, Council? Mayor Henderson, sorry.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So council, yeah, obviously tough to watch, and I'll be honest, most municipalities across New Brunswick have been dealt a tough hands of cards with municipal reform. Some of the stuff that was brought up today about the taxation, I completely agree, and that's why we call it the bucket conversation. It's not left field at all, and I hope that doesn't come across from me anyway, because I completely agree that there is allocation that needs to be done better. The model in which we're doing is the model that we inherited from the province of New Brunswick. It's the model that's being used. As a council, I do believe we have consensus in the new year to get into that. The good news is, as Mr. Spear did say, is that that 1/3, 2/3 cost is not what Shamcook Bayside is paying today. That would make their mill rate significantly higher. So we do have time before that actually is a situation where Shamcook Bayside is subsidizing St. Andrews. So we do need to have that conversation. We've committed, again, this is, I think, the third or fourth meeting I brought it up, that we will do that exercise and we will do it in 2025. And we'll have to look at everything. But that is something that we're all committed to doing. I will say that the other things are completely right. It is beyond frustrating that Shamcook Bayside has joined St. Andrews, and if they have a problem with the roads, they call the province, and of course the province has absolutely no responsibility to staff or council. So even when they do extend, like, updating a road as far as repaving, we don't even necessarily get notification it's happening. We see the trucks come in and there's no heads up with the town. So there is an opportunity. This is something that's in front of UMNB. It's not a St. Andrews problem. It's a provincial wide problem. But yeah, we as a municipality can get more vocal on it, and we will get more vocal on it. And this is all stuff that's growing pains of all coming together with a model that was not, again, properly cascaded. Their facilitator did very little to facilitate any of these conversations. Everything that we asked the facilitator, again, they had no answers for. And when they did cascade something, there was no dialogue. It was just, this is what it's going to happen. So the end result is these are growing pains that municipalities across New Brunswick are having, and St. Andrews happens to be one of them. I do have a question for Mr. Spear, though. I do have a concern. I do know that there's 700 line items, and the reality is it would have been great if those columns that didn't line up before, the 37,000 versus 50,000, it would have been great before if you just got an email on it so we could get it adjusted for tonight, but it came across to dialogue tonight. A question to you, Mr. Spear, is this a situation where we could just table it, get that corrected, and then quickly have a special meeting and get this passed? Because I do personally have a problem, and I'm sure you do too, passing a budget where I know that, again, it's a small error overall in the total budget. I completely respect that. But if I know there's an error in a budget, I typically don't like to approve that. So, and again, not blaming anyone, because there's, again, 700 columns or whatever it is that we went through, and we all looked at it, and this just came on the floor tonight. But I just have a problem passing a budget when we know that there's something like that on it. Over to you.
Whatever council wishes, your worship. I mean, it's so insignificant compared to a $7 million budget. It helps means a difference. What we can do is make a motion to adjust the amount that comes from the General Capital Reserve Fund to offset it and pass the budget tonight, so we can amend that line item, then I can lower it and the whole budget stays the same.
I would recommend that we do that, just so it does, Deputy Mayor.
Well, thank you. Council, is that your preference? Did I see a show of hands for Mr. Spear? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's everybody, just about everybody. Thank you.
So, Deputy Mayor, I'll move on what Mr. Spear just said, just as far as using the reserves, if you have a seconder.
Seconder, Councillor Go-Michelle. So council, all those in favor, say aye. Oh,
We just, well, you have to leave for debate on the amendment too, your worship. That's all. You just
Okay.
give them a second before you jump right into the motion
okay,
or the
so
vote.
any more debate on this issue? Sorry. Seeing none, then we will ask the question. All those in favor, say aye. Contrary minded, Councillor Bennett and Councillor Weir are opposed. That is, the motion is carried. Thank you, council, and thank you, Mr. Spear. Now what do I need to do?
No, that was just the motion on the amendment.
Oh,
Now we have to
motion.
move back to
Now
the
we have to
original
go back
motion
to the
budget.
regular motion, okay. So that was just for the amendment.
So I think Councillor Weir would like to accept the amendment then? Oh,
Okay.
okay, so accept the amendment.
Well, he's changing his vote?
No, he was just thought we were already to the budget presentation, so
Okay, hold on, you got me
Councillor-
confused.
Councillor Bennett, are you still remaining a nay on the amendment?
I'll be a yay on that.
A yay on
On
that?
the-
So
on
you
the
have
amendment,
you have
okay.
unanimous.
All right, so now we go back to the original motion as amended. Council? All those in favor, say aye. And contrary minded, Councillor Bennett and Councillor Weir are opposed to that. But the motion is carried Uh, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, 2. Okay, thank you. All right, Counselor Heenan, after all that, we go on to the second motion.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. The motion is that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews approves the 2025 Utility Operating Fund budget consisting of a total revenue of $1,258,180 and total expenditure of $1,258,180, and that the utility capital projects for 2025 budget be funded at $353,143 from the utility operating fund, $115,000 from the long-term borrowing fund, $11,107 from the Canada Community Building Fund, $320,360 from the Government Grants of Canada, $1,290 from the Utility Reserve Fund. And I so move this, Your Worship.
Thank you, Counselor Heenan. We need a seconder, Counselor Gomoshel. Further discussion, Council? I don't see any, even from the mayor. So, question, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And contrary minded? Counselor Bennett? That's a yay movement, isn't it not? So one nay. Thank you. All right. So now move on to on the right page. Okay. So page
116, Your Worship.
116 is right.
116.
116, and it's again you, Counselor Heenan.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. FA 241223, appointments of auditors Teed, Saunders, and Doyle for 2025. Under the Local Governments Act, Section 71(1), the council of every local government shall appoint a clerk, treasurer, and an auditor. Auditors are regulated under Section 71(1) through 5, 84(4), 99.1(1) D of the Act. We originally appointed our current auditors in 2012, but we should formally appoint them again by resolution. It is recommended that Teed, Saunders, and Doyle, chartered professional accountants and advisors, be appointed. Staff recommends in 2025 to put forward an RFP process to follow best practices and allow us to appoint an auditor for 5-year intervals. The motion is that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews appoint Teed, Saunders, and Doyle, chartered professional accountants and advisors, to be designated auditors under the Local Governments Act for 2025. I so move.
Thank you, Counselor Heenan. Seconder, Counselor Bennett. Any more further discussion? Counselor Hurdle.
Thank you, Worship. Just a quick question. Is there any reason we don't go to RFP now?
Just a timing issue that auditors take a lot of time to get prepared. And so if we went to an RFP, we wouldn't appoint until February. We'd probably be into the end of next year before we'd get our audit completed. So we just think it'd be good to appoint them one last year at least, and then bring it to the general process over the year.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. Does that answer your question, Counselor Hurdle? Any further discussion? All right. The question is, all in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? Okay, carried. They're appointed. And it's carried. The motion is carried unanimously. Right? All right. Again, Mr. Heenan, Counselor Heenan.
Thank you, Worship and Council. FA 241224. Cancellation of regular council meeting for Monday, December the 16th of 2024. As per bylaw number 23-06, a procedural bylaw for the organization and operation of council of the town of St. Andrews, a motion needs to be approved by council to cancel an upcoming meeting. With the majority of council business being able to be concluded on December the 2nd, 2024, it is recommended that council motion to cancel the regular council meeting for Monday, December the 16th, 2024. If there is a need for an additional meeting, it will be struck by a special council meeting. And the action motion is that the council of the town of St. Andrews cancels the regular council meeting for Monday, December the 16th, 2024, as per bylaw number 23-06, procedural bylaw. And your worship, I so move.
I have a seconder, please. Counselor Gumshoe. Further discussion? Mr. Spear?
Thank you, Worship. Just be easier because the CEO or clerk don't get comments at the end of the meeting. So for our next meeting to pass those resolutions for the reserve funds, we're talking
there's special-
Thursday, the December the 19th. We'd like to do it at noon if we could get a quorum, but we could do it at 5 or 6 o'clock if council prefers. We're open.
Thursday, December the 19th.
Is what I'm putting on the table for a special
12 noon?
meeting. But if that doesn't work for people, we can bump it later and we can do it by email just to confirm what people's availability, but that's what I'm suggesting for now.
Counselor Weir?
Just a suggestion. I don't mind dropping down on that date. Doesn't bother me, but I do think our bylaws allow us to hold a meeting by Zoom. So
Through your worship, that they do, however, it's
Special.
we would still have to hybridize it, so there would still have to be an opportunity for council to appear in person and via Zoom. So we would still host it here at the council chambers, but if the majority of council was via Zoom,
Paul and I keep each other good company so we can meet here in case they
Yeah.
cancel.
Is that all right, council, for Thursday, December the 19th, around noon time, special meeting?
Will
Could
it
you
be
just
here
show
in
a row of
chambers?
hands
Will it be here?
Quick,
here in
quick
chamber?
question. Sorry to interrupt. Quick question on that. Why would we just not keep our regular meeting on the 19th and have that as the only one, the only motion? Just because we're used to
Coming in from vacation, so it gives me a couple of days. To
Oh, sorry. Okay.
So yes, it's all about me. Yeah.
No comment.
Counselor Reed, you had something?
No, I
No.
was just voting
Okay.
for that I would do it on the 19th, your worship.
So could you show hands so that our staff know that we will be available on the 19th? Okay. Thank you. All right.
Sorry, your worship, I know it threw you for a loop, but so that was just a general question, but we have to go back to the original motion to cancel the meeting on the 16th.
Okay.
You've had
so
a mover and a second.
We did have a mover and second with Heenan and Gumashell. So now we need a vote, council. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? Carried. All right. Moving right along, Counselor Neal, it's your turn.
Yay. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. This is reference number PWPS 241207. The subject is policy P-24-05, work alone policy for the town of St. Andrews. The background reads, under WorkSafe New Brunswick regulations, employers are to have a policy in place for staff working alone. To meet the regulations, staff have drafted policy P-24-05, which meets these requirements. If approved, senior staff will provide training to all staff members so they are aware of the policy and the steps to take when working alone. So the motion reads that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews approves policy P-24-05, work alone policy for the Town of St. Andrews, and I will so move.
Seconder, please. Counselor Bennett. Further discussion, council? Counselor Harlan?
Just a question in terms of how the training happens. Is it in-person training or are staff required to read the policy? How does that happen?
Through your worship, so we will do in-person training. All staff will receive a copy of the policy. We'll walk them through the policy and different scenarios that could occur so that they understand what they need to do and what processes.
Great, thank you. I'm just concerned about the integration of the information. I think it's better if it's done in person. It's a very important policy for all staff to be aware of. Thank you.
All right, any further additional discussion? If not, we will move to the question, right? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Contrary minded? Carried. I just have to read the name of no, nothing. Okay. Good, good. We're moving right along. All right, what? Sorry? Yep, I've got page 134, and it's the background staff report. So is that you, Mr. Knopper? Or Mr. Spear?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Council. So just as a really
Update.
brief summary is that we ran into issues in the licensing permitting, if you will, on the federal level with the fill-in required for the wharf. And we were left with the decision about whether to scale back the project or to proceed with mitigation. Now, the mitigation we knew was going to have a cost that we've been playing with numbers. The problem is if we scale back the infill, it actually has an effect on the project because we've been talking that it's some market square, but a lot of the infill is being used to support the new wharf structure. And so the additional cost of bringing in concrete and steel piles, if I remember, is $1 to $1.5 million. So we'll say $1 million to $1.25 million in order to not use infill and increase more structure. So we came across through somebody in the community, introduced us to Ducks Unlimited, who does this sort of thing. And they did give us a proposal at the last, which you have in your hands. But just to say that their estimated cost of mitigation is, I had 268,000 or 300,000. Anyway, so it was going to be 268,400. Look at me, memory. To do this mitigation, which would allow us to fill in Market Square and go out to the wharf as we originally proposed, to be the original hybrid model that we originally called it. So it's additional cost, yes, but we're stuck then. Either we pay the additional cost or not pay it and then have to spend an extra $1 million, or we pay it and save that money. So it's 268,000 we weren't expecting, but in order to do the project, it's really saving us $700,000. Because we couldn't get around the mitigation without any infill. We had to have infill to make our wharf at the cheapest option. That was one of the reasons we went with a hybrid option, was to save cost, because the infill instead of structure was significantly and also quicker. I'll remind you that we think we can still do it over a winter and have it done by the spring. But we're starting to tick-tock a little bit, and maybe one of the discussions we'll have is on this at our meeting. If you want, we can wait till December or January's meeting, but it'd be good to start this process. But I'm just trying to get a feeling if this looks appropriate to council, that in order to really, we've got to get the final design going. We still got to go through the DFO mitigation process. They've told us in theory or in verbally they'll accept this, but there's still a process to work yourself through paperwork and stuff. And so we'd like to get this going. I don't think a month is going to change anything here or there, but it'd be good to line up the staff at Ducks Unlimited who have their own professional department, which was news to me, but they do. Then I know they're a big organization, but didn't realize they did project management. And if there's anything we can do to discuss this, more information you would like at a future meeting, let me know. I'm open to a million suggestions, but I'm again just trying to move this forward. Best case scenario.
All right,
And your-
council.
Sorry, your worship, just one additional
sorry.
note that the engineering work with the infill project, if we go forward with that, can run concurrently with the DFO project, this together, so that we can jointly get to a point where the projects can actually meet approvals at the same time. So yeah, that's one of the biggest factors with this. It can be done at the same time.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and not even to the point, just to expand on that, they can get approval from DFO. But last we heard, they would actually, as long as we committed to doing the work and had to put down a financial, I think the value of that, to be honest, up front, in a certified bond or something, that they'd allow us to delay that, so meaning we didn't have to get that work done and then start the wharf, that as long as we gave our word through an agreement to do the work, we could start and proceed with the wharf project.
Thank you, Mr. Spear and Mr. Knopper. And council? Oh, the mayor. Sorry.
It's okay. Sorry that I'm mobile tonight and don't have the report in front of me. So sorry, what was the total project cost again?
$268,000. That includes the cost of the work. And so, I guess since we're talking about it, there's a salt marsh over in Campobello that is currently completely isolated, that has no tidal action. And this would be to remove a lot of the material. There was a man-made road put across it decades ago. And so this is an offsetting one, and that they want to create a channel, not remove the whole berm, but create a channel that would allow it to be 100% under tidal action. One time we thought it'd be significantly cheaper last week. We were hoping that we could only create it so it was under tidal action at the high tide or half tide, but they want it to be brought down to the same elevation as the salt marsh that it's affecting.
Okay, so sorry, I know you went to a meeting and I had another meeting for the town, so I went to one, you went to the other. How does that credit system work? Like, does this project give us the exact amount of credit that we need, or is this a situation where this would give us extra credit? Or like, how? I'm just wondering if there's any way to have another partner that needs these credits as well to do projects to bring down the cost for the town, or does it just happen that DFO said this project is exactly what we need, the exact amount of fish habitat that we need to do the wharf project? Just because I was under the impression it was going to be less than this. And again, I do understand the total project cost. It is a savings compared to if we didn't do this at all. However, it still is extra cost for the taxpayer of the town of St. Andrews. So I'm wondering, how does that really work? Is it the exact amount, or is there extra credit there that the town would have in reserves or be able to essentially sell to somebody else for helping this project?
No, so the ratio was 1-to-1 that they were looking for our project, and this particular project meets that. It's within enough of a threshold that it's all for us. So we're not building extra capacity, if you will, or anything that we would need to fully finance this to get the credit we need to complete the project on Market Square and Market Wharf.
And through your worship, just to note as well, it's not just for the construction work, it's actually for the construction plus the monitoring that has to occur afterwards. So that's the 268,000 would be the total price for the entire monitoring system as well.
And my question on that is, Ducks Unlimited is the project manager. I'm just wondering what happens in the case of overages, as we've gone to engineer several times, and what we've got for their assessment ends up coming up significantly higher. Is that a risk that we have, that this could be $325,000 or $330,000? That
Yes, I can't lie. It is. It'll be a tender process. This is an estimate. All of this based. They were talking to a contractor, local contractors in Campobello. That was one of my concerns. Is just that because it's isolated, it would be less competitive than it would be where you had people from St. John, Farrington, Moncton, St. Andrews, St. George, whatever, that could make a project. Where this, they have to get into accommodations and things. So they feel comfortable with that quote. But again, with all these tenders, it's based on the amount of quantity going out, and that's all they could do at this point in time. What we could probably do, though, is work through it all and put out a tender for this work as quick as we can. And so we wouldn't start the work project till we had a good idea how much this one's going to cost, would be my initial recommendation, without talking to Ducks Unlimited, who may say that's a terrible idea. But nonetheless, we should be able to run the tenders close together so we can see what the real cost is.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. Does that answer your question, Mayor?
just one more comment. I just wanted to give a shout out to Mark Sorensen, who is an engineer that lives in St. Andrews. He, on his own time, has raised his hand since the wharf project got delayed to give advice, even on kind of the reasoning for why it was originally, I want to say rejected, but the whole habitat thing, he tried to find a workaround for us there. And then he's the one that obviously has put us in touch with Ducks Unlimited. So, it's just an example of a community member getting involved for his community. And I really think that we need to acknowledge that. And he's already reached out about another challenge we have in the community. So I'll be honest, in this process, this might be a little bit of a jab, but this is the first time I felt an engineer in this process really, I guess you could say, put their heart and actually try to help the town of St. Andrews in this process versus make us feel like we're on our own, because that's how I felt for the last few months when it comes to engineer services. So here's a volunteer that's already done more for us. That's just my opinion.
Thank you, Mayor. Any other people? Oh, Counselor Weir, sorry. I see you pointing.
Yes, I'd like to echo what His Worship has said. I've dealt with Mark on a couple small things, and same thing. He just he opens his bag of knowledge and passes it along, and it's done in a very congenial and helpful manner. I think we're looking at a situation similar to what they had in Oak Bay many years ago with the wasn't flushing properly through the culverts. But there is one of the major local contractors in Charlotte County does live in Campobello, so we may be able to get a decent price. But I'm like you, it still irks me that the engineers we even told them about it and they still wouldn't accept it. So, but Mark does deserve a lot of credit.
Thank you, Counselor Weir. Counselor Neal.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The approach to this is something that I've been kind of wrestling with. Again, obviously, environmental protection, habitat restoration are very high on my list of things. But logistically, the approach suggested here to me is not one that I'm really in favor of. Basically, what we're being asked is to spend taxpayer dollars on restoring a habitat in a neighboring community so that we'll be allowed to infill habitat in our own community, which that logistically I have a problem with. It's not something I can really wrap my head around. Honestly, the whole thing feels a bit like environmental.
Yes.
Yeah, like blackmail, environmental blackmail, we'll say. Again, when this came up to us, when the engineers brought this forward, they did come with another option, which again is going to be more expensive. But from what I recollect from all the public meetings we had, when we were putting the original wharf options forward, the option that we did choose the hybrid model, primarily I think was chosen based on cost. I think if cost wasn't an option, the model that the engineers have actually come to now, which doesn't require any mitigation, was the preferred option. It is what traditionally looks more like the wharf we have now. The other issue I would bring up again would be the monitoring of this. I have worked in a few areas where this has been done. And the fact that they want to open up a portion of this man-made road, that really leads me to believe that, again, it's going to be an ongoing project. It's going to continue to silt over and fill in naturally. So this is not, in my opinion, this is not going to be a one-time cost. I can see this having to be dug out numerous times. The example I can think of in Nova Scotia is, again, it was a saltwater marsh that was isolated, had a hole punched through it during a hurricane, and they excavate it yearly to keep it operational. So again, just for those reasons, I don't think it's the best option for us. Again, I'm not a fan of, infilling habitat to begin with. But the fact that we're being asked to pay to restore habitat in another community simply so that we can infill our own is something that just environmentally, politically, and ethically doesn't sit right with me. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Neal. Any further discussion, council? What are our options now?
Mr. Spear, when do you need a firm answer through your worship?
Well, I was hoping to have it this month. We can probably, well, again, it's the DFO proposed or permitting can take quite a while. So if we don't make a decision until January, it could push us. Now, we are still talking till December or October. So as we learned the last few years, that time really comes up on us fast. I know we're getting to the bitter end, so I can talk to everybody and see if we hold off by a month, if it's going to make that big of a deal, or we can hold a special meeting later this month to focus harder on this, and maybe Ducks Unlimited would be willing to come in virtually to discuss it with you.
Mayor Henderson?
Yeah, Councillor Neal's comments were they're really good. I appreciate them. So DFO is the one that approves this project. Ducks Unlimited is the one that manages it. But just to be clear, we do have to pay the monitoring. We're aware of that. But if the monitoring says every year that this needs to be basically dug out, is that the assumption that we have to now dig this out in another community every year?
I'd have to go back to them and find out what the agreement looks like with, I can't speak to it. I'm assuming Councillor Neal is right in his professional experience, but I can't speak to that myself.
Let's, if you don't mind, again through you, Deputy Mayor, if we don't mind digging into that, just to, no pun intended, if we don't mind looking into that, I think that's a major concern, because this could end up, costing $30,000 a year for forever if that's the case. And I don't have I guess there's risk with every mitigation project, but Councillor Neal's comments certainly had impact on me. But with that being said, $1 million extra to extend the wharf also has impact on me. So before we as a council make a decision on that, I think we need to know what the risk is involved with this long term. But again, if DFO says this is going to work, and Ducks Unlimited saying this is going to work, I think if it doesn't work, I think we need to make sure that we'll pay the monitoring, but it's not our problem, because we did what they said for us to do. They, as experts, told us this is the project that will mitigate it. I'd really like to know if they're wrong, if that's something that we pay, because that doesn't feel right to me at all. If this is a project that they said is going to increase habitat and they're wrong, that shouldn't be on us.
Thank you. Mayor? Counselor Weir?
Yes, when you first made the comment about monitoring, I was getting ready to ask the question, how much is the monitoring costs? And or do we have a definitive timeline on it? Will DFO or Ducks Unlimited give us a definitive timeline? Otherwise, we're in it for perpetuity, I think is the word. And,
So
that's how many grandchildren down the road.
Yeah.
Great. So,
And just form an informal telephone call for about 15 minutes this afternoon. They said monitoring years 1, 3, and 5. But I don't know if that's all they're willing to look at, or if that's what someone's willing to commit to, that after year 5 it's done. I don't know. So I'll have to go back. They're excellent points, and I just don't have the answers right now.
So we will hold off on this until we get information. Hi, Mayor.
And just one more on that point. Do they have the ability after year 1, year 3 to say, oh, we still have concerns, we want to extend you another 5 years? That's what I need to know. Or at the end of 5 years, we're off, we're done. That's all questions I think we need to know to both Councillor Weir and Councillor Neal's comments.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Spear, you're going to check into that?
Yeah, there's no motion required. It's just an
No.
update anyway,
Okay.
just to bring the newest information to you in the
Thank you.
town.
Thank you. We're into Economic Development, Business and Culture Committee. Counselors Hurdle and Weir, and you're on for 24-04 bylaw. On page 136. Counselor Hurdle.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And this is in reference to EBC 24, goodness, I need my glasses. I can't read it. EBC 240902, and the subject is bylaw number 24-04, Heritage Conservation Bylaw for the third and final reading. The background is the Heritage Board of the Town of St. Andrews was established in the summer of 2023 to develop a heritage conservation bylaw. The board has developed a draft bylaw for consideration by council. Please see the attached document for more details. The bylaw process is as follows. There was a public hearing of objections on October 1st, 2024. The first reading was November the 4th, 2024. The second reading was November the 18th, 2024, and the third and final reading is today. There are two properties that have been requested to be removed from the bylaw designation. That's 144 Carlton Street and 94 King Street. The first motion before us is the council of the town of St. Andrews removes the designation of 144 Carlton Street as a local historic place, and I so move.
We need a seconder. We've got Counselor Heenan. Any further discussion, council? If not, we will go to the question. All those in favor of removing 144 Carlton Street as a local historic place, say aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? None. So carried unanimously. All right, continue, Counselor Hurdle.
The following motion is that the council of the town of St. Andrews removes the designation of 94 King Street as a local historic place, and I so move.
Thank you, Counselor Hurdle. Is there a seconder? Counselor, the mayor. Henderson. Thank you, Counselor Heenan. Any further discussion? Ready for the question? All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? Carried. And the next one.
And the last motion is the council of the town of St. Andrews grants leave for the third and final reading to bylaw number 24-04, Heritage Conservation Bylaw for the town of St. Andrews, and I so move.
Seconder? Counselor Harlan. Further discussion?
Sorry, your worship. Just one note, you were provided a new map that was, so that's been updated with the properties that you were asked to remove before, and actually with the updated ones that you've just approved. So this will be the map that is updated into the schedules. So just so you're aware, that's what it will look like now.
Thank you, Council. Mr. Knopper. All right, so now.
Sorry, just a moment, your worship.
Oops.
Yeah, we probably should have, just because it was added to the package after, you should have an amendment that the
We adopt
map
the
will be,
map.
yeah, that the map will be updated before
We
you.
need it. We need an amendment to add the map. Counselor Heenan, and seconded by the mayor. So the amendment is that we adopt this map for the
Bylaw
bylaw. 2404. So all those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? So the amendment is carried. Now for the original motion. So for that, the Heritage Conservation Bylaw for the town of St. Andrews be accepted. All those in favor? Aye. Contrary minded? None. So you carried unanimously. That's done. So now we need to read it just by the title. Correct? I'm getting better. All right. This is for bylaw number 24-04, a heritage conservation bylaw for the town of St. Andrews. And I don't have to read anything more except for to say that this was done on the first day of December 2020. Second day of December, lost today, 2024. Thank you, council. It's passed. Yay. And the map has been amended. Right, now next. All right, so now we're on to courthouse. And it's
Page 147.
page 147. Gotta get there, 147. Okay. And it's Mr. Knopper's name at the top for the discussion, or Mr. Spear. Who's doing it?
Oh, I'll do it. Thank you, Your Worship. So council, you did have a meeting with the Civic Trusts approximately a month ago in regards to their 129-page report as outlined. You had a number of questions that have come back to you through a summarized document and a letter from the Civic Trust. Essentially at this time, I mean, council can debate further what you would like to do, but the proposed next steps are to look at a building condition report from a structural engineer, and to potentially look at an architectural design and material takeoff study. As noted, that you're looking at approximately, in the short proposal, the first ask is for about $80,000. And that's more about information gathering and analysis of the building and the next steps. But they have provided you a timeline of opportunities for what they're suggesting. But really, council, it's up to you to debate and decide what direction you would like to give staff on the courthouse and what you would like to do for next steps and willingness. So staff are still waiting for a response back from the funding partner as in regards to the extra funds that we have left over from the courthouse project for the roof. That was the painting for the courthouse. So hoping to hear some information back on that shortly, but until that time.
Yeah, and I was just wanting to reiterate that Civic Trust has made a presentation, brought a couple of documents to us. You may not be in the position to make a decision tonight, but if we'd like to at least bring it forward for at least discussion, if it's not tonight, probably in the next.
In January.
In January, we can have a separate meeting or something if you like, but we just kind of want to know, Civic Trust has put the time in or asking about kind of what's next. And so we're just saying, what's next from councils? What direction would you like to give us on this particular initiative?
So council, what are your suggestions? And Mayor has his hand up.
Yes, I'd recommend council that we have a meeting just on this topic. The members of the Civic Trust have put in a significant amount of time into this proposal. With that being said, I certainly would only want them to proceed if it had the support of council. For them to go out and get funding and us to decide that we don't want to pursue that or something like that, it's just not fair. So I think we really need to make sure that everybody is aligned to if we want to go ahead with this or we want to go in a different direction. And I don't think after passing a budget and a heritage bylaw and everything else after 2 hours, we're going to give it the justice that it deserves. So I do think it requires its own special meeting or work session. Thank you.
Is that your wish, council? Are you making that as a motion?
You don't have
You
to
don't
make it
have
as a
to have a
motion.
motion because this is just a
Take it as direction and bring it.
direction for staff, correct? All right. So staff, you're directed to do that. And thank you, St. Andrews Civic Trust, for putting all your hours into this. We really appreciate the work that you've done on the courthouse, and we'll have that meeting in January and hopefully finally get some decisions about the courthouse. So that being said, that is all our oops, okay. Keep going. Oh, new
Yeah.
business. Yes, but I had to finish that. There was nothing on Recreational and Environment Committee, and there's nothing for the Planning and Community Development Committee. So now we're into new business. And we have Councillor Weir's
Discussion on the appointment
discussion
of
on the new
engineers.
engineer. Okay. Councillor Weir?
Well, when I saw the appointment of the auditor, I know some municipalities appoint an engineer. We've gone through quite a year with respect to engineering. And I know some of the councillors here talked to me about it. And I'm very disappointed. I don't know whether we're going to get any discounts on the extra work they generated for themselves, but I would certainly hope we would. You know, they were told point blank in April by myself and Councillor Blanchard that they needed an EIA, and they just didn't react. There was no reaction whatsoever. And they continue to do work on the trail. They misestimated the quantities. Now, I'm not an engineer, but I know how I would have estimated it, but I don't know how they did it, but they certainly missed the point by a lot. And fortunately, we did have funding for a lot of that, but I'm sure it still cost us engineering fees and it cost us money. So I think we do have to have a very serious discussion with our engineers that if they're going to continue to provide services to us, they've got to do it at a higher level than what they are now. And they have to be more aggressive and they have to be more cost conscious. Again, we're back to fiscal responsibility. And I just feel it's something that should be on the agenda. I think it's something we should discuss, whether it's in closed session or open council. I'll leave that up to the clerk to decide. And I'm not shy about saying what I think about it. So that's all. I just would like to get it on the table and get it addressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Weir. The mayor? You
Yep. Let me speak. I completely concur with Councillor Ware that overall the service that we've been receiving from our current provider has not been up to the standard that we've received over the last I'll call it almost a decade that I've been involved. There was a key member that retired. I don't know if it's related to that, but the service that we've been receiving as a municipality has not been consistent with what we've received in the past. So I think having that sit down meeting with them on it and then reporting back to council would probably be the best. I don't think we're in a position to appoint anyone obviously today because we haven't met with anyone else, but I completely concur that that we are paying a significant amount of money, and that amount of money does deserve a certain amount of, I'll even call it customer service that we're not receiving today. So I'll take that back if that makes sense to council. Mr. Spear, does that make sense to you? We'll have a meeting with them and just find out if this is kind of the status quo, or do they feel like could improve our services again, or is this just again something you want to hold the contract up? And then what we could do is also call and obviously look around to see what other options we have. Mr. Spear?
Yeah, Your Worship, I don't disagree with Councillor Weir saying, but it was already on my thing to make an appointment with them and have a talk to them between now and Christmas and say, express our concerns over some of the events that have happened and express that it's council and staff both that want to have a discussion about how we're going to, if we move forward, what it'll be. Should say that though they've been our go-to engineers, we do occasionally run RFPs. Maybe we have to run more of them on a project by project basis, or find a new civil engineer who looks after kind of the in-ground stuff and go to more extra RFPs for stuff that's outside. Anyway, it has been high on staff's agenda too, to have that year-end discussion.
So that will be on your radar for January or for the end of this month. Thank you very much, Mr. Spear and Ms. Councillor Weir for bringing that forward. Any other new business? Seeing none, we're into question period. So, any questions? Okay. Wow, we have questions. Come up to the
Yeah.
podium and make sure the microphone's on, please. And state your name.
Good evening. My name is Brett Fotero. I'm one of the directors of the newly formed St. Andrews Historical Society. think we had at least one of your counselors at our inaugural event at Drew Haven. And I kind of feel bad because I sent my board an email saying, hey, the courthouse is on the agenda tonight. And I didn't ask them to come, but they've all been here watching. So, but I just want to say that I'm honestly a bit perplexed about the process. And so that's my question. I wanted to get a copy of the report. We participated, spent quite a bit of time submitting a fairly lengthy proposal to the Civic Trust, went through that process, and have been waiting kind of anxiously to see the result. So I've asked the Civic Trust for it. I sent an email today to the town and was told I can't get it until after tonight. I guess I'm asking because I'm not sure whether tonight is enough so that now the report can be released. So for those who participated in a very public way in this process, it would be great to know what the report is so that we can offer feedback. We may be thrilled with it. Don't know. Haven't seen it. So that's the concern, is trying to understand better the process, because obviously we have great interest in the courthouse and how it will be used in the future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Spear or Mr. Knopper?
So I guess it's until council's accepted the report. It's been our practice not to release reports. It is still in Civic Trust hands. It was their document of submission. If you could, we don't have to get into whether they've asked them and they've said no or anything like that. But council hasn't formally accepted it yet. And so our practice has always been, it's not on the courthouse, it's on lots of stuff, that until council's accepted the recommendations, we don't release a report.
Yeah, so I have asked the Civic Trust, and they told me to check with the town. And I encountered this problem once before when there was a report I wanted to see that you were going to consider, and ultimately, and I actually think it related to the courthouse. It was the first thing done by Broken Shovel Consulting.
Yes.
So I think actually you should consider this issue of whether your policy of not releasing it until you've accepted it is appropriate, because it denies people in the town who are interested the chance to see what you're seeing and discussing. So, you know, we come to here and we know you've got it, but we don't know what it is. So it'd be great for us to get it tomorrow, but maybe in the future you can consider whether, when a nonprofit group like the Civic Trust, or you've hired somebody and they've submitted a report, I think it's a public record at that point, whether you accept it or you choose not to. So that's the concern. We look forward to seeing it, and hopefully we can offer you feedback on it before the next meeting that you, if I'm understanding it
I know, I
correctly, that
see
you'll
him.
be
Just wait.
having about it.
All right, Mayor Henderson?
Yeah, just in response to that, they're fair comments. I think one of the challenges are when you're on town council is if someone gets a report, they'll call a council right away. And if we released it before we had a chance to talk about it, sometimes you're not prepared to answer questions. At least Mayor, I can't, because I need to have a little bit of backing of what council's feeling. But it's a legitimate point, really. If it's something that's presented to the town, it should be available to the public. The problem is when you're on municipal government is, if someone does a report for you for whatever reason, when that goes out to the public, it gets transcended that this is what the St. Andrews Town Council or whatever the community is planning to do, when it might not be what they're planning to do. And it has nothing to do with this particular courthouse. It's just in general. People, when they see even a motion or they see a report, it really quickly turns into this is what they're doing. So I completely agree. It's kind of a tough one. But I will say on this specific one, unless I'm missing something, I see absolutely no reason why we would hold back this report. If Civic Trust is saying go to town hall, then I personally have no problem with it being released so people can see what's before us, unless I'm missing something, Mr. Spear.
No, you're not missing anything, Your Worship. They had, the original meeting, they presented it. They said it was kind of a draft report looking for feedback from council before they made it public. That was all, but I'll get in touch with Civic Trust tomorrow, and if they have no trouble releasing it, that's good enough for us. We'll provide copies to.
Perfect. That's exactly what I was going to say. If Civic Trust says we're good to release their report, then I have no problem releasing that either, as from a town perspective. So as long as no one else sees it different on town council, I don't know why we'd hold that document back if Civic Trust is okay with us sharing, since it is their document.
Anyone on council have a problem with this? No. So, Mr. Spear, you'll check with Civic Trust, and then hopefully you will get a copy as soon as possible. Thank you. Mr. Chapatiani?
Stan Choptiani. I have three things that I think I would like to maybe comment on, but also maybe part of questions. I still sit on the technical advisory committee for the landfill, and the committee had over the about 8 or 9 years that I've been sitting on it, had numbers of issues with engineering firms, and there were similar things to what I'm hearing tonight. Collectively, the landfills in New Brunswick hired a consulting engineer, and it seems to be working quite well because it's a he in this case, is independent, and it gives advice. The advantage that he has is because he represents the 5 or 6 other landfills, he gets a variety of information that's greater than what that one landfill offers. So as a possible question, when Councillor Weir's suggestion about hiring an engineer for this town, it may be something to consider, having a discussion with St. Stephen, St. George, other towns that you might be able to share the expertise of a particular person. So maybe that's a question, or if I ask it as a question, would you consider moving in that direction? Because I certainly have seen the benefits at the landfill, and I think that there could be the similar kind of benefits here. Second comment, really more than a question, and it comes again back to the discussion of budget. In my experience in 2012, when I started as mayor, we had about 12 years of a political attitude that said, we will not raise the mill rate, and we will try to keep things under control. But what that meant was for 12 years, very little got done. And there was people who thought that was wonderful because the financial aspect was good, but nothing got done. I inherited that, and with Mr. Spear as well. And we've been playing catch up. And what I'm hearing from this council is that that deficit, it's I guess an institutional deficit, is still here. What you're doing is at a far higher level of complexity. You've got better tools. From where I sit, I'm seeing, I think, excellent decisions, excellent processes being implemented. But it's a frustrating reality with the issues around climate change and what it's doing to the town, the issues of expenses and supply chain costs. Those are things that are far exceed what the town is ever going to be able to be capable of to pay for the things that you would like to be able to do, the 1.5 million in paving, et cetera. So really, it's a comment to commend you that I think there's excellent consideration of trying to be financially responsible, but there isn't a simple answer. But I can tell you from what I've seen, you're doing a great job. The other third thing I wanted to say is, because I think this gets on TV, and you people need to be able to understand that people in the community appreciate the time that you're putting in, the efforts that you're putting in. You get a little bit of money, more than what I got, but you get not a lot considering what you do. And as a member of the community, I wanted to thank you for the hard work that you do, and and you do it in a way that I think is pretty impressive. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Choptiani. Anybody else? Sure.
My name is Joan Schwartz. I'm very grateful that the council has passed the heritage bylaw. At the same time, my question is, what's the implication or the irony that on the same night, that the bylaws passed, two incredibly historic buildings in town have been delisted. One would be 200 years old next month, and the other built in 1829. So if the heritage bylaw, I don't know whether it would have mattered if you passed it first or not, because you can ask to be delisted, but what are the implications now of having a heritage bylaw where there really someone can come along and pretty much do anything they want now with the Tilly house or with Windrose, and what's the next house that's going to go? And so I say there's a bit of irony, and how do we reconcile that?
Thank you. Mr. Spear?
I guess I'd refer to Councillor Hurdle. I can't answer it, but he has been speaking to a lot of these homeowners that have delisted it. I will say from a procedural, it was easier to delist those that were interested prior to the bylaw, that there'd be a lot further steps after that the bylaw has been enacted to prevent it, or at least to have a secondary sober second thought, as we say, after looking at it. So it will be harder effective now. That's what was all done prior to the third reading of the bylaw. But Councillor Hurdle, sorry if I stole any of your thunder.
By all means, steal the thunder. It's a great question, and I think one that we almost didn't have time to answer, if you know what I mean. We just, as you know, it's been a long process with it, and we really wanted to make sure there was a lot of public process throughout the last year and a half with this. The unfortunate thing is there are people that miss that public process, and speculation, myth, rumor start to spread about what it is that we do or that we're trying to do. And it becomes a fact that, okay, maybe now is not the right time to try to debunk all that in this exact moment. But knowing that we're also not trying to pass a bylaw through coercion, but collaboration. And so when people are kind of up in arms that they're afraid that, well, this is just the back door opening, but when we really pass it, we're really going to do all this stuff, really wasn't in the spirit of what we were trying to do. So my thought process behind it, and you could debate that maybe I should have fought harder to try to get these houses on board, and something I've grappled with myself. There's time to get back on if we can just show and prove in the work that we're doing, because it's not just we pass the bylaw and we're done. It's that we continue to create a culture of sustaining these properties of value that you can hear even in your voices as we speak about these properties themselves, how much love for them that there are in our community. So the more that we show that what we're doing works, my hope is that through a collaborative approach, that and by osmosis almost, that we get more homeowners on board with it, and we're able to, as a community, speak to why this really matters, as opposed to getting in conflict, which is how it felt when these houses were being asked to delist, is that there was a conflict. They felt like we weren't being transparent. It felt like, it didn't feel like the right type of conversation to have at that point. But the work is not over, and we hope to have everybody that has a historic heritage property to be on this, because I think the way that we did it was at the best way, the soft rollout approach. And I think that we show what this is through the work that we do. Hopefully that answers your question. I know I'll keep grappling with it in my mind too, but I completely concur.
Thank you, Councillor Hurdle. And Mayor Henderson?
Yes, thank you. That's another great question. And before I go on to Stan Choptiani, thank you very much for those nice comments. And I will say that just on Stan Choptiani's comments about asset management and holding the mill rate consistent like the town did for a number of years, it's important to note that this isn't a St. Andrews thing, is that asset management, 15, 20 years ago was something that wasn't done really in any municipality. It really doesn't matter if the mill rate went up or down. It just was not something that was done at any level of government, really. So as governments have evolved and start to, look at the cost of putting a pipe in and the replacement life and things like that, obviously we're in a different situation, but I don't think that was anything to do with previous council decisions, because it was something that just wasn't done in any community. So again, thank you for the kind comment. So I guess specifically for me to answer the question on why these specific properties were allowed to be removed, their designation. When I went to the information session, just like a lot of councillors did from the Heritage Committee, they did say that this is something that homeowners can do. And I think it's very important between the Heritage Committee and for Town Council to be consistent. So for the Heritage Committee to say that and Town Council to not go ahead and allow it, I think that that's where trust gets lost fairly quickly. And the reality is the best course ahead for the heritage bylaw would be that we find a way in which there's incentive to be part of a historic place in the town of St. Andrews, whether it be through the municipal government having some type of fund, or I know that Karen Ludwig spoke of that there was a federal fund at one point. And when Mr. Spear and I spoke about the home assessments, we even brought it up to them that in Nova Scotia, I believe there is one and there isn't one in New Brunswick. So hopefully it gets to a situation where homeowners that just been removed say, hey, this isn't as scary as I thought, and there's a real incentive to be part of it. So that to me is the way that we get everyone on board. But I think the key from the Heritage Committee to Council is that this is something that the town overall, a majority of the community has wanted for a very, very long time. And what this really is a bylaw that will allow people to not just buy and bulldoze. So people, I see it all the time. I'm actually in Charlotte right now. My friend here just had an offer in their mailbox the other day, not even seeing the house. They just wanted to buy the house to bulldoze it. And as St. Andrews' population has grown and it continues to rise as a hotspot for people to want to buy real estate, this will help prevent it. And then, of course, the character defining elements that make these homes as historic as they are, it will protect those. And if people want to alter them, at least there's a process before that they'll have to go before a board to explain why they want to do it and how, and at least, present a case versus just modify a complete home. But yeah, back to the original question of why we allowed it. It was basically a situation where that was something that was communicated in those committee, in the public engagement sessions, and it was important for Town Council to do exactly what the Heritage Committee said that was possible. I will say moving forward, people will have to now ask, or at least I guess you could say, be a little bit more transparent on why they want to be removed. And again, Councillor Hurl touched on it. Just one last point is a lot of things in which I've heard in the community opposed to the Heritage Bylaw were all things that weren't the case. A lot of people think that this is just the first step of doing more. Now that we have it, now we can do what we want. No, to change this at all still requires three readings and a hearing of objection. If anything, to me, this will stop, I guess you could say those that are against the Heritage Bylaw will stop a more strict one, because the concern is in the future, if somebody decide to buy and bulldoze a couple historic homes in St. Andrews, I bet you the council of the day would end up putting something in a lot more strict than what this is. So a lot of fears, but more or less it's just honoring what the Heritage Committee said in their information sessions.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. Thank you, Councillor Hurdle, for your comments.
Sorry, Deputy Mayor, just one comment on the bylaw itself. If anybody does want to be relisted onto the bylaw, it takes one motion of council and a request to council to be re-added back to the list. So it doesn't have to change the bylaw. It's only a scheduled list change.
Thank you, Mr. Knopper. Any further, question?
I came to support, I'm a director on the St. Andrews Historical Society. I came to support that. And I'm also a heritage homeowner, so I can look at that. But I have something completely out of left field that I thought I've been thinking about recently. I have a large front yard and I've raked a lot of leaves off that yard. And I put those leaves in bags. And those bags are from trees that are chopped down to create the paper bags that I'm putting the leaves that are falling off my trees to put somewhere at a dump that the town has. And I know that we have a vacuum truck and I hear every rainy day go around and clean. I live on a sidewalk and I hear them cleaning the debris at the edge of the sidewalk. And correct me if I'm wrong, I may ask Chris, that has a vacuum in it, does it not? And that would it, in some municipalities, what they do, you own the culverts. You own the portion of my property that is a culvert. And I'm constantly taking the leaves mostly out of there. But why could we not, to save a tree, put the leaves in there and have the vacuum truck come and suck those leaves out in a time frame that is given for the same process of collecting the leaves. I just think that the wastage that we're seeing with the paper bags is something that possibly, if that truck does that, is something that you would want to consider.
Mr. Spear?
So the truck, maybe in its glory days could have done something like that, but that's a 30-year-old truck now we've been buying used. So it can't, because we did have that discussion fairly recently. I'm not sure there'd be sufficient to go, resources to go all through town is the only other question. You know, depending where how it's cost shared, Doyle, Bayside, Shamrock too, I don't know. But that truck is up for replacement in the next couple of years is you know, not within our 5-year plan. And so we'll take that under advisement and have a discussion about what it can do. And if, you know, if we pay an extra X amount of dollars to get the capacity to be able to handle those, can we?
Thank you, Mr. Spear. Thank you, Mr. Well. Any others? Okay, that brings us up to counselors and deputy mayor's comments. Well, it'll be the mayor's comments tonight. So, Mayor, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, I'll just two quick things. I just wanted to thank staff for the budget. There's a lot of work that goes into that budget. It's quite a process, and obviously through reform and everything, a lot of the comments aren't directed towards staff. It's more to the process that we've inherited. So thank you, Mr. Spear, and your entire staff for the amount of time you put into that budget. It does not go unnoticed. We are lucky to have someone, especially with your designation, that makes this process as easy that is. And it definitely is something that all levels, no matter if you're got a lot of experience with budgets or you've had limited just through, you know, town itself, it makes it something that everyone can understand. So thank you for that. And then I just wanted to congratulate the Heritage Committee, the one that actually put this bylaw together in town council. You officially have done something that literally has been 50 years in the making. This has failed several times, as we know, in the fact that you were able to implement the first ever heritage bylaw. And I will say that not everybody was supportive of it, but I'll tell you, it was definitely a high percentage. So I do think that the Heritage Committee got it right. And I need to acknowledge all of you for implementing something that hasn't been able to be done in the past. The heritage homes in St. Andrews, although some will say it should have been even stricter. The reality is heritage homes in St. Andrews are going to be protected at a level that they never have been before for future development. And I think that all of you need to be acknowledged on making this a reality and staying the course. So thank you to all of you in the Heritage Committee.
Thank you, Your Worship. Anybody else? Councillor Harlan?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just want to make a special thank you to the Christmas by the Sea Committee, to town staff, the Public Works folks, Kevin Simmons and Ali Spear, and all of the volunteers who worked incredibly to build the lobster tree in the middle of town square. This town looks amazing. At the best of times, we have a very special community, amalgamated community, including Shamrock and Bayside, that has a phenomenal look and feel. And it is because we have a force of volunteers who never seem to tire, who you know continue to provide lots of support to these activities. We have an amazing public works crew and a great Christmas by the Sea committee. I love the warm lights, the warm clear lights. It's a great addition, a lovely addition. It makes it really, the downtown feel very special. So congratulations to everyone involved in those activities. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Harlan. Anybody else? Okay, I get to speak. Oh, Councillor Heenan.
I was just hoping, Your Worship, I could find the ad. There was a journalist that came and explored 9 hidden New Brunswick villages, and St. Andrews hit #1.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted to bring it forward that it makes you very proud to live in the town of St. Andrews. Thank you very much, Your Worship.
You're welcome. Well, then I get the last say. The mayor's still on? probably won't get the last say, but anyway. Don't forget to go to the Ross Museum this weekend. We lost Carrie Cross this year, and I think it's going to be a wonderful opportunity to go there. There's many days, and Mervyn and Austin and Norma, they've all worked well as their staff. The staff has helped out, and the boys. We always have that great town crew that help out in any situation, and they're still doing it. The other thing I want to mention is that the Anglican Church is having a Christmas dinner on Christmas Day for those of you that don't want to cook a turkey and would like some social time with a whole bunch of people. Go to the Anglican Church and have some turkey, ham, whatever they're serving, and a meal, and share in their time of socializing. They're doing a great job for Christmas. And as Councillor Harlan said, our town looks spectacular, and we couldn't do it without the volunteers that are there, and Kennedy House, who opened their doors for the sing-song and hot chocolate and everything. It was really phenomenal to see the light display, as you said. Nice to see the lights actually went on at the same time. So that's a great thing when we can do that as a town, and to the staff for providing us with the assistance. So thank you again very much. And I think we're going into closed session, if I can,
We are, your worship. However, I need a motion to continue.
to continue.
Yes, we're at 2
Oh,
hours. and
we're at
45
2 hours
minutes.
and 15 minutes. That's correct. So Counselor Neal is making the motion. Thank you for coming out tonight, all you people, and and Counselor Bennett has seconded. So we will continue.
No,
Finish.
carried. All those in favor?
All those in favor, say aye. Contrary minded? Carried. Mr. Speaker. Okay, so we're gonna give CHCO, thank you,
No.
CHCO, for all that you do too. You're hiding in the background, Flo, but we really appreciate you and CHCO.
Now you need your motion to go in closed.
Now we need to go into close, so I need a motion to go into close.
Hold on,
Counselor
let me
Heenan?
read your motion.
Oh, hold on. The motion is.
So at 9:17 PM, that council moves into closed session as per the Local Governance Act, section 68(1)(f). Information concerning legal opinions or advice provided to the local government by its solicitor, or privileged communication between solicitor and client in a matter of local government business, and section 68(1)(j), labor and employment matters, including the negotiation of collective agreements.
What he said. We're going into closed session at this time, and I need a seconder. Counselor Harlan from Counselor Heenan. So we give CHCO some time to, all those in favor, sorry. Contrary minded? Carried. Thank you. We'll give CHCO time to get out and,
Okay.
okay, I need a first and seconder to come out of closed session. Counselor Gilmichelle and Counselor Heenan. All those in favor?
9:54.
Contrary minded? Done. Now we need a motion for adjournment. Oh, I got all kinds of hands. Counselor Hurdle and Counselor Bennett. I know you, sorry, I missed the mayor. Oh, sorry,
It's okay.
the mayor.
Aye, all
You're
for
on
adjourning. Bye.
Bye. Good night. Have a great trip back. Drive safe.
Finish it, please, finish it.
What? Finish
Vote.
the vote? Oh, all those in favor? Aye, contrary minded?